It's a new day for the Grin Grappler folks as we're on the verge, we're on the precipice of a new era for the late night Grin. But some things never change, right? It's Grin Grappler time. We have another grappler to add to the archives. And what a unique candidate we have in front of us. We're going to start tonight's show in 1987, and we are 24 hours away from this gentleman wrestling the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, on TBS tomorrow night. One of one, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. We're locked in, another Grin Grappler. Expert panel, as always. Bobby Two Shoes. How are you this evening, brother?
Doing well. Great to be back. Always enjoyed doing these. And, looking forward to getting into Jeff Jarrett here.
Absolutely. Did you complete? We had a bit of a panic here before the show. Bob was eating his dinner, and I said, Bob, do you want more time? And he said, I will be done by the time the intro ends. And you were. Was it a close shave?
No, a little bit. I had about 30 seconds, so professional,
I love it. Okay, tremendous. The Oracle of Wrestling, back again, brother. How are you?
I'm good. So yesterday when I got home from work, I was all excited, watching the Raw, Raw after SummerSlam, maybe, ended up being a great show and excited. I was going to take a shower, settling in, about to turn on Raw, and I was thinking about things I need to get done, and I immediately went, oh shit, I gotta watch 6 Jeff Jarrett matches tonight. Fuck. One of these days, I'm gonna forget to watch the matches, and I'm gonna wake up on Tuesday and get to work and realize I haven't watched the matches, and I won't be able to be on the show because I didn't watch the matches.
That'll be a memorable
going to happen one day, and it's going to be very funny. But yeah, I got everything watched. And I'm here.
You are indeed.
I'm good.
You are indeed. I don't know if you saw the response, but people love that SummerSlam review we did, bro. People loved it. Did a big number.
Really?
Our channel had a really strong run. There was only one show that let us down. It made more sense when I saw the rating today. The Collision Grin Along was a tactical misfire. I didn't realize people would not watch that shit, but we got to see a Dax match. Roddy Strong. What are you gonna do? Win some, you lose some. It was a great time. Nonetheless, Contrarian Alex. So a unique lighting setup we have here for Alex, who is muted, and I don't know if he knows he's muted. So I'm going to continue to talk here while he unmutes. And now I'm going to ask how he is this evening.
Yeah, the lighting looked better when the sun was out. I was setting up here, and I'm going to adjust it here in a minute. I'll go off camera and bring in some additional resources. Yeah, I'm in the living room just chilling. I've been making the mistake of watching most of the Olympics like in real time. Not the ones that are happening in the middle of the night here in the United States, but so every night when they show like the replays, I'm like, I already saw this, but I got like my tri-monitor set up going with the Olympics and whatnot. And so that's not what you asked me. Anyway, I'm doing well. I'm here and excited to talk about Jeff Jarrett, someone I've been a truther about for as long as I can remember. And I think I tweeted when we announced this that back in the days of the message boards, that took a lot of work to defend some of the things that Jeff Jarrett did. And we'll get into some of that later, but we've covered the Inokis and the Terry Funks of the wrestling world. So, we're not here to say that like we're covering like unprecedented ground, but goddamn, a worker's worker that we are inducting into the hallowed halls of the Grin Grappler. And as always, something I look forward to once a month to get with you boys and talk shop. And hilariously, there's people out there around the world that enjoy listening to it. So let's give them a good show. Yeah.
Apparently so. Folks, we appreciate those of you that enjoy listening to this program, but we hope that this time around and moving forward, you're going to enjoy looking at it too. I mean, obviously you have our beautiful faces, but look at the visuals on screen, courtesy of the Confirmed Shoot. And we've barely scratched the surface in that regard. There's some great visuals ahead of us. Before we get into our usual program, I do want to apologize to our Twitch subscribers. Friday's show, I was in a unique state for that program when I had an argument with Bob about something he didn't even say. So I missed a lot of Twitch stuff. So I want to quickly circle back. I want to firstly thank No One Gunkle, who's resubscribed and has been with us for 24 months on Twitch, which was jarring. And then I saw that Lord Lambo's move was 27 months and asked the following question, which I missed entirely. So I'm going to do this here. All hail, since SummerSlam is known for having great matches, what are your favorite SummerSlam matches of all time? I know Alex's answer is Bulldog and Brett. Goes without saying, he's a big fan of the London SummerSlam and all that comes with it. Bob, favorite SummerSlam matches?
I can't even do the bit with this one. It's probably still Brock and Rock, Brock and Punk. Those two are up there for sure. Just very different. Angle and Austin from 2001 is tremendous.
Yes, it is. Yeah, great answer. Derek, what need to add, mate?
I'm trying to think here.
I can tell.
Randy Orton won the world title one time. That was really good.
He did, yeah. I can't remember he wrestled, but it was good.
I forget.
Do you remember when New Day and Usos tore it up on the pre-show of an 8-hour show? Remember that?
That 4-way in 2017 is a great one.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's the subject here we're discussing, fellas?
We're discussing favorite SummerSlam matches, and I told the people yours is Brett and Bulldog.
Oh, fucker.
What would be your actual answer, Alex? I'm intrigued.
Brian Cena immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely, that's great.
That or the Punk Brock match from that same show comes to mind too, and yeah, that's or the Hospocalypse from 2017, that 4-way, just because like watching that in like a crowded room of people, like at a party, and just like the live reaction to it, that was like a all-time fun match. SummerSlam is an embarrassment of riches, though. We could
He is.
be here.
Speaking of such, we just so happen to have a show on Friday. Chris Bourdin in the chat, and this is news, and is pivotal in terms of that Usos New Day match, as well as Bliss Cross versus the Iconics. Pre-show matches are not eligible. There goes my first and second pick, fellas. I've got to really go back to the drawing board here. No pre-show matches on Friday. That'll be this week's episode of the Late Night Grin. We'll tweet out the full lineup tomorrow, but we're gonna have a hell of a time trying to put together the best.
I really wanted Austin and Yoko from '96. Yeah,
hey man, I was there.
There you go. You was there, Bob. You were there for this. Even Marie and Alexa Bliss, a classic, a clinic keeper.
Yep. Good time.
You got the. You did, yes. That was a good bit. All right. Okay. With that, all of that established, whatever that was, folks, we're about to get into Jeff Jarrett. We hope you are thrilled and fired up for this. Oh my goodness, incredible imagery on our screen right now. Bob, what should they do the like button while they're getting in here?
Smash that like button.
Flared farm, I like it. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you have a hot take about Jeff Jarrett. Feel free to send a super chat. If you comment something about Jeff Jarrett, like your personal memory of him, I'll probably put on the screen anyway. But if you want to support us, you can. Let's get into it. Okay, so our acts tonight, we have young Memphis babyface Jeff Jarrett. We have the WWF. We agreed with WCW there was only one match that we could do, and none of us wanted to do it for obvious reasons. And then our third act, of course, TNA Founder Jeff Jarrett. One of the things for tonight's show that we're going to get into as we go here is a true anomaly is Jeff, in the sense that his reputation is that of like this career heel. But the thing that becomes obvious when you actually watch his matches is he's a babyface. Like his in-ring is that of a babyface. I think there's not a coincidence. Our two TNA matches, he's a babyface. We'll get into that as we go. But first, we'll start as we always do. Our Jeff Jarrett fan. I'm going to save Alex for last here because he's certainly the main event. Bob, your fandom when it comes to Jeff Jarrett, and because I have no idea where three of us stand on this. Alex, I'm pretty confident. Bob, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's another one of those guys that it kind of took the network coming around for me to really appreciate, because he obviously got fired from WWF in 2001 and wasn't around for quite some time. I do kind of remember him from when I would watch TNA on Fox Sports Net, but I didn't have the full appreciation obviously till the network, and even beyond that, his podcast really opened up a lot of stuff for me, just kind of going through his cage match. He's done so much cool stuff that we kind of get into here, but there's so much more that we didn't even get into, and it's just kind of over time, kind of keeping tabs on TNA, being like, they're still around. Jeff Jarrett's still there. That's crazy. Kind of through the, late 2000s, early 2010s. And yeah, now we're here and he rules.
Indeed, he does. He's someone that I honestly find it hard to track my own opinion of. I don't know. It's because I do think there are extended parts of Jeff's career where he is, fair or unfair due to circumstance or not. He's quite unfortunate at times, and he's a victim of his own creative and other people's creative influence and a bunch of different weird chapters of his career. I will say, and I have no issue like kind of conceding on this, his podcast did an awful lot for me kind of adjusting my viewpoint of him in a range of ways. My world is actually, I mean, I don't listen to it much anymore, but I don't know if you still do, but the initial year or so of My World is like one of the best wrestling podcasts ever, I think. It was spectacular. And it allowed you to kind of get a better, perspective of who he was as this almost cartoon character that we've made him out to be, as this like wrestling carny, and I think fairly so, but you kind of get a bit more of the human side of Jeff Jarrett. I think you appreciate his work more in doing so. My main take, though, has always been, even when I wasn't so much of a fan, the thing I mentioned earlier, which is it feels like at times he had a career that was totally at odds with his actual skill set. But what a career it's been, so who am I to argue with it, right? So very complicated. I certainly have come to appreciate him in recent years. I think the AEW run has been tremendous, actually, for that. And people have kind of, grown to sort of love Jeff for all of his quirks and his house style of horse shit. So an interesting Grappler oracle. Where would you say your fandom of Jeff starts, ends, if it does at any point? Go for it.
So I first saw Jeff Jarrett on Dying Days WCW many, many years ago now. Didn't really think much of him at the time. Started watching TNA in late 02. Hated him for years. Thought he sucked. Thought he was awful. Bought into all the negative hype and stuff. Just couldn't stand him for years and years. And then I would say, I don't know, it was probably 10 or 15 years ago now. I mean, I started to watch older wrestling and stuff and watched a lot, YouTube has like the whole entire Jarrett Lawler Moondogs feud. There's that great angle in Memphis when Jeff is still a referee where he gets a shit beat out of him. And then Jerry Jarrett is like crying on like Memphis TV about it. And like Jerry Jarrett gets his ass beat. I can't remember what the whole context of it. But like stuff like that. And then just going back and watching his stuff from mid-90s WWF. He was a very good TV worker in WCW. Not a lot of stuff to necessarily have on this show. But he was always a good hand in the ring. And like watching back those old Nitros and stuff, I was always impressed. And even revisiting some TNA stuff in the last 10 years or so, I've come to really enjoy him, and I've loved him in AEW ever since he came. I mean, I don't know exactly when I started to appreciate Jeff Jarrett. I just think that part of it is that he works a particular style that I grew up having a soft spot for, whether it was at a really low level of it, on the indies, or just watching like hearing the stories of Crockett and all that other stuff, and then like watching that stuff. Like he's just in Memphis, obviously, where his obvious roots are from. Like he works that stick like when he's a heel, and he's just it's just an art form in wrestling that people don't really appreciate.
He's an outlier
anymore.
now.
People don't really like Southern style wrestling anymore because they're wrong. And they're more worried about how many near falls are in a match or whatever, and it's really lame and embarrassing. But like it and first of all, people need to learn how to kick out. if you're gonna do near falls in your match, you're better off just doing this, just throwing your hands straight up for when you kick out of a near fall.
It's the best.
Nobody does it better than Jeff, but yeah, he's. I don't know. I've just grown to appreciate him over the years. In my curmudgeon self, I think he's a throwback in many ways.
He's sustained in a way that you can't help, but he kind of wins you over, right? Like he kind of. I think that's a common sentiment. I think if we did this show 10 years ago, I think people were like, "Why?" And now everyone was like, "Hell yeah, Jeff Jarrett!" It's I think there's a lesson in that. I suppose I should have mentioned to him about my fandom, the timeline of Jeff Jarrett fandom. I forgot the Bullet Club chapter where. Do you remember that was the first time that Bullet Club had like jumped the shark 10 years ago?
He did the reveal. The guitar had the Bullet Club logo on it, and he hit Tanahashi with it. That's right.
And he worked like an 8-man or something at the Dome that year. Incredible.
I think
scenes.
he teamed wrestled maybe against Shelton. I remember that.
Yeah, because it was Global Force presents Wrestle Kingdom, right? They got them on paper, whatever it was. Because Global Force, we'll get into this later, but it was a fascinating thing because it never seemed to know what it was, really, did it? But nonetheless, we'll get there. That'll be our kind of epilogue, I guess. Alex, I said it was the main event. You've been fighting this fight for many years, as you said earlier. This is personal for you. It's a chance to settle unfinished business. Go for it.
It's in my the same folder as my Shane Douglas defense. The biggest difference being that a lot of people have come around on Jeff Jarrett and Shane, not so much. But early memories of Jeff Jarrett, of course. 94, 95 WWF in that fucking weird gear that he wore that he would take to WCW with him. I remember more of WCW. I do remember when he left and the real Double J was revealed. And I was, even as a kid, I was like, this is stupid. WCW.
On the road, keep spinning.
In the hands on the clock, keep spinning.
Sorry, continue.
I watched that performance from the In Your House. Because he performed it live.
Yeah.
And everyone listening to this knows how we feel about Vince McMahon in real life. But God, what an incredible, just fucking white man he was on commentary. Yeah, playing the guitar in Nashville. Just ridiculous. So I remember U.S. champion Jeff Jarrett, vividly watching Nitro as a kid when Deborah was with him and he was feuding with Mongo and trying to get in the Horsemen and shit. And he came back to the WWF. He was the Aztec Warrior there for a second. And then I remember he came in. You got to keep in mind, I'm 10, 9. So it's still real and shit. And then he came back and he did that promo that had a lot of fire behind it, but it made no sense to me as a kid. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah.
And then that pretty much tainted his entire run at the WWF where Steve Austin's like, well, hell, I'm not going to work with this guy now. And that eventually led to the SummerSlam 98, as I've talked about at some point in this run, was such a big show to me as a kid. And I remember one of the things that it was still real. So I was very upset when Jeff Jarrett bullied Howard Finkel and shaved his head. I thought that was really mean. So when he got his comeuppance that night and lost to X-Pac and got his head shaved, I remember just how satisfied I was as a little kid with my wrestling figures watching that. And then he became Don't Piss Me Off. And then teamed with Owen, which we'll get to, was gone. And went to WCW. And that is kind of the theme of my memories of Jeff Jarrett as a kid, was he was the one guy more than anybody during the Monday Night Wars when bong, 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 bong kept sound like fucking Trump, bing, bang. He was bouncing back and forth between the two in a way that, so I said, no one else during that time was. And then the WCW run, I have to be honest, as a kid, and then going into my teenage years in WCW, I did not buy him as a headliner. But then TNA comes along, and he's obviously the guy there. He's the man, and that's kind of 2004 when Fox Sports Net started. That's when my message board days started, and I hated the idea of Jeff Hardy coming into my TNA and becoming the top guy. So like when Jeff Jarrett won, I remember just being on the message boards that night, like, goddamn right. Victory Road 2004 is the pay-per-view I'm referencing. And but then there came some, one of the title matches we're going to talk about here tonight was one of the hard times to defend Jarrett. There was a particular night in January of 2005 where it was like, for fuck's sake. And but all the while, I maintained that he could deliver the solid world title match. And come the time of 2008, when he came back for that first match with Kurt Angle, it seemed like the general sentiment had turned on him, come around, of people being like, oh, well, he can have these like great matches. It was like, yeah, because just what Oracle said earlier, it's very clear Jerry Lawler was his favorite wrestler, and Jerry Lawler, shit human, but could have like these amazing, compelling pro wrestling matches. And Jeff Jarrett studied from that. But what Jeff was great at, and I think what the main thing is people are realizing now, is that he was able to like, and still is, deliver when things matter, if that makes sense. And that's one of the things now we see with him is what happens every 6 months in AEW. Jeff Jarrett will do a promo or like do something that like everyone is talking about. And he's this guy that has, and we'll get to the closing act of like just talking about the carny that is Jeff Jarrett. Not only has he remained, found a way to remain fairly relevant for, 30 years in mainstream pro wrestling, but like he still knows what cards to play to seem like one of the best in the game. And they're all too often, from like, honestly, like 95 through now, we've come across these wrestlers that seem so concerned with constantly showing that they're the best or know exactly what they're doing. And Jeff's been smart enough to just hang back, and then every once in a while be like, oh, I can do this.
To the credit of his family, his father was a very sound awful. Am I back?
You're back. I think it was feedback on Alex's mic. I could be wrong.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think it was
his dad is like one of the smartest guys in the history of the business.
for sure.
Jerry
Absolutely.
Jarrett, like, like obviously, he made his, he made some mistakes, obviously, like anybody would in wrestling, but like, he's a smart guy, and I think Jeff kind of got those genes, like, of being able to play his cards right, and like, because Jerry Jarrett stayed. I mean, he was obviously, like, he was like a consultant for like what 30 years before he passed.
He was in the game a long time, longer than people realize, I think.
Yeah,
the hilarity of he was the one Vince was going to leave the company too. Like he was the only guy in the industry Vince trusted.
I definitely think there's truth to that in terms of like playing the long game and how that's kind of allowed him to age much more gracefully. I mean, obviously he has aged gracefully, but he wasn't someone who was like swinging for the fences every Thursday night on Impact trying to have a 4-star. That's not Jeff Jarrett, right? And I think as a result, his decline is a lot more obscured than it probably is in reality.
And it's fitting we start with a Bockwinkel match because Jarrett's hair, as he's gotten older, has become more majestic, much like Nick Bockwinkel. Like the older Bock got, like his hair was more like captivating. And before I forget, on the subject of Jerry Jarrett, I think the biggest failing of the Iron Claw was that they didn't cast Jeff Jarrett to play Jerry Jarrett at the Sportatorium by the company.
That would have been cool.
Spot on. I agree completely. The confirmed shoot, he handles our visuals around here, but he very seldom touches the Grin Grappler format, right? He's still upset about the Kenta thing, but he said, please show this. And I actually edited it to my format so I wouldn't forget. He's it's horrifying piece.
Jesus. I have the Sting doll from that line, and it's also terrifying.
Wow.
Now
that's a good example, though. I was just going to say before, Jarrett may have the most sustained run of great entrance music because he had the national and then when he turned heel, it was and then TNA, of course, he had And then WCW, he had the chosen one.
He sure did. Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, this will pop you also, Alex. It's a sign of his relevance. In the last decade, he's become like a weirdly hot commodity in the action figure game.
dude,
It's a real thing, right? Like there was a Mattel that was cancelled, and then now they're doing an exclusive AEW thing. Like it's yeah.
he had I really regret not getting it. I don't know how much it goes for online, but the first run of TNA figures, I think Toy Biz, maybe Marvel did. He came with a breakaway guitar and an NWA title, which up until that Harley race figure that came out recently was the only NWA title for an action figure that was ever made.
Wow.
And he was also famously, he was one of the people that was in the last line of Hasbro's that got canceled. The Orange Card series. It was going to be Jeff Jarrett, Diesel, Men on a Mission, and then someone else. But you're exactly right. And then, like his most famous figures are the Bone Crunchers, and those suck. No one fucking cares about Bone Crunchers. And so you're exactly right. And that one exclusive, is it Ringside that has it? Like the head sculpts on it are fantastic.
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett, folks. What a strange case. And with that in mind, let's head back to 1987 to start this journey. May 4th, in fact. Memphis, Tennessee. Where else could we start this journey? I'd never seen this. A fascinating piece of business. 1 year into his career, 19 years old, Jeff Jarrett steps in there with a 52-year-old Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA World. Jim Ross has made that mistake a few times. AWA World Heavyweight title. The setup here being Jarrett is the substitute challenger because Jerry Lawler is injured. And immediately you're given that context. It's framed as a Rocky Balboa situation. And this is just such a smart match in terms of that context is never lost within the match. Never, not once. It's always present. Oracle, let's get into it. Bockwinkel, Jarrett. This is quite the piece of business here. Go for it.
Yeah, if memory is right here, I think this might be on the Memphis set. This is a really great example of the 80s, the classic 80s vet comes in and young up and coming, super young and up and coming in Jeff's case here. Local guy challenging the world champion. The great Lance Russell's on commentary here. Lance is awesome. Lance is the best to ever do it to call by himself. Like, He makes Joey Styles. I mean, like Joey Styles was never going to get anyway.
I was just about to say, I need to hear Lance Russell call a total elimination. Total elimination, my God!
Imagine Kevin Nash doing the Lance Russell call total elimination. Yeah, this is just a perfect, simple, classic. Local young challenger facing the champion. I was watching the early portions of the match, and I thought, Joe's been complaining about people whacking each other lately, and this is about the perfect match for him. There's tie up and a side headlock and a leapfrog, and I'm like, I bet Joe. I'm thinking Joe probably give this five stars just for that. This is just a simple and effective match. Like it doesn't have a lot of flair to it, but it's the thing that honestly stood out to me the most was like when Jeff finally got things going. Like, of course, he has like a long wrist lock in there, or whatever. Because it's mostly they're mostly working the mat here. Jeff's big hot run at the end there, the drop kicks and stuff, and how well Bach puts it over, and then that finish was just tremendous, right? He just moves out of the way and then sweeps him up and pins him, and it's just there's an art form to that, and Jeff is you don't get the sense of how good or great he might be, but but you also get the sense that a lot of wrestlers back then, if they were trained by the right people, were less green than the ones who start out today.
Mm-hmm.
He just had the tools and the athleticism and all that stuff and the understanding, and he was in the right place, and he was already on his way to being kind of where he needed to be at his age. He seemed comfortable in there. And of course, Bockwinkel was tremendous. And this is like what Buck's got a month left before he retires.
Yeah.
I know he has a few other matches he wrestles into the early '90s, but like he retires in '87 as a full-time wrestler. So like, he doesn't have much time left. In fact, I think isn't the match with the roll of quarters like within a couple of weeks of this?
It has to be. Yeah.
It's
wild.
Cow Palace, the Super Clash, whatever, or not?
Jarrett has to be the only guy after tomorrow night anyway that's wrestled Bok and Bryan, right? He has to be. Like he's surely.
I'm trying to think anybody else who could have wrestled Bok and Bryan.
That's still
Maybe
active,
Kamala?
Yeah, I was just about to say Kamala.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
All-time pro
Kamala.
wrestling anecdote: Kamala wrestling Bryan.
Yes.
He knows he's going to lose because he's a champion. He gets there and sees how small Bryan is and says, "I'm not losing to him."
But yeah, this match, it's a good match, but it's much more. This is the Bockwinkel Jarrett match, not the Kamala Bryan Daniels match. It's a good match.
Also great.
But it's much more a triumph in hierarchy and presentation. Because they never ever sacrificed the dynamic of the underdog rookie versus the veteran champion. It's like Bockwinkel has complete control of the match. The only thing Jeff has is he has speed, which makes sense, and that gives Bok a couple fits. But the real success Jeff has comes from Bockwinkel making a single mistake and hurting his shoulder. Right? I mean, he'd have fit in at SummerSlam, 2024, while he hits his shoulder on the post in there. I mean, he really would have been at home. But that opens the door for Jeff. And as soon as Jeff has an extended run of offense, he messes it up and opens the door for Bok. It's like, it's a great example of how wrestling matches are not supposed to live in this, like, did they maximize what they could do physically? No, that's not the point. The point is Bok is trying to get across an idea of hierarchy, but he still finds a way to fill a 20-minute match in a way that's logical, makes sense, and makes Jeff Jarrett look better than he probably was at that time. So it's a very smart match here, Alex. What did you make of Jarrett and Bok?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's like a lot of fun. It's just what came to mind, but like it's funny to see how small Jeff was comparatively speaking at this point, and how he's a big fellow. He's like what, 6'2", 6'3", something like that. And it's just Bockwinkel looks massive compared to him. Look, we'll get into some of the brilliance of Jeff Jarrett as this goes on, but man, any chance we get it to talk about how great Nick Bockwinkel was, just unbelievable. Like the effortless things he does in this. Specifically, there's this moment where like Jeff's all amped up. It's during the opening stretch, and he backs him into the ropes, and the ref's doing the break, and Bockwinkel just like starts walking away before the count's over because he's like, "This is a waste of my time. What are you doing?" And it's the whole thing of he's in control. And then the first time Jeff catches him off guard or is too fast for him, he's like, "Okay, well, hold on." It builds to this incredible spot in the match where he power slams Bockwinkel, and Bockwinkel gets up out of disbelief and feeds right into another power slam, and then he immediately gets out of the ring like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe he got me twice, that type of thing. It's just this like increasing concern from Bockwinkel, and to the right crowd, Lance Russell's on the call. Jeff Jarrett here, I think we can start here because he has it from the jump. One of the all-time great working punches, and you can tell he fashioned it after the Lawler uppercut, where he likes throwing it from downtown, but just looks incredible, looks beautiful. And there's a part in this where everything's flowing so well. And even like the most dramatic, like pro wrestling moment in this match is when Bockwinkel goes to like, he thinks he's going to basically punt Jarrett in the face, and Jarrett moves, and Bok flies up and lands on his back. And in the wrong context, it would look goofy, but just kind of works with the flow they're doing here. And then just we talked about, it's this Rocky type underdog performance, and what's a good Matt Serra? How about that, Joe? Something just for you and I here. But before he can finish the show, he flies too close to the sun and he goes for that missile drop kick, and all Bockwinkel has to do is move and roll him up, and it's not like he's no selling the finish. It's just Jarrett gets up and he's like, god damn it, I lost. And it's man, you want to talk about something that was probably a learning experience for young Jeff Jarrett, getting in there with Nick Bockwinkel. And we've talked about Bach numerous times on here before, and there's never really been someone who did that technical wrestler act as cool as he did. Like, people talk about Ric Flair and shit, but Flair was like literally the loudest pro wrestler ever. And like Bockwinkel was just, he'd get frustrated, be like, well, I'm still going to outsmart you. And that was his whole like promo style too. It was just like calm, cool, and collected. And you watch something like this and it just shows how big of a difference like body language can make, and like his like motions and mannerisms when he's getting frustrated, but never like, blowing his stack. It's an interesting match for sure in the evolution of what we do here in the 6 matches that we watch unfold. And one I had never seen. And Joe, when you put it in the chat, you're like, hey, I discovered this, we should do this. I was like, fuck yeah, dude, anything we can do with Bockwinkel. And then to see how Oracle touched on this, Jarrett obviously got better, but he wasn't out there. There was no point in this where you could see him being like, what's the next spot? Or like, what do I do next? Like, it's I think there was a bit more of a vetting process, to say the least.
He's fundamentals kind of kept him, that's been the base of his game for years, right? So it's an interesting match. Bockwinkel, it's the Bockwinkel show, ultimately. He is just superb. He's so fluid. His headlock takeover is like just poetry in motion, dude. Like, it genuinely is. And he also has like little rough elements to his game. Like, at one point he gets Jeff against the ropes and throws those little forearms to the stomach. Like, he's just terrific here. He really is. Bobby, Bockwinkel and Jarrett, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it ruled. You guys kind of all pointed out, but just keeping it simple and just letting Jeff, be kind of plucky and hard to put away, but also, Bockwinkel not giving up control. Just they told the story they had to tell here, man. Like, you kind of pointed it out when you introed it, and it was really effective.
There are some wonderful touches with when Bock hurts his shoulder. He does that deal where he turns southpaw, right? And he's like protecting his weakened shoulder. And Jarrett has this moment where he's hesitant as to whether or not he should fully attack Bock's shoulder, right? Like, he's kind of like, do I, don't I? And it just captures the whole idea of the match, because Bockwinkel obviously wouldn't make that same mistake, and it gives Lance so much story to tell without doing a lot. Jeff had a clip on his podcast where he talks about this match, and he talks about how nervous he was. And he basically, paints a picture of exactly what we see here in terms of learning how to calm down and just listen to the people and just go. Because realistically, how much content is actually in this match? It's hardly any, really, right?
You can tell one of those headlocks. You can tell that Bockwinkel's like, nope, we're staying here for a minute. Like, because Jarrett's like all fired up and shit, and it's just you're exactly right. And it's not always like it used to be better thing. It's definitely, in this case, it was a different skill set, man. Like, it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
In that clip, Jeff talks about how, like, he said, in fear of doing it used to be better. Jeff said, like, TV wrestling has made it so you couldn't do what we did there. And it's kind of a shame, right? Like, it's a shame that you can't. That is such a simple presentation of wrestling, and I think that people would be terrified. Now, imagine the quarter hours, But it's like, it's just, I don't know. There's a real charm to it. The presentation is the real highlight there. So great to have another Bockwinkel match.
Would have been better if they went right until the time limit, and then Bockwinkel used a ring to punch him in the face and knock him out, like with like 2 seconds to go. That's what I hear. That's a 6.5-star finish, from my understanding.
All right, up next, January 17th, 1992. The USWA. Where are we at? In Kennett, Missouri? Is that where
Kennett, Missouri. Yeah.
This is our chance here to represent a very famous feud. And it is a very...
Every time you hear, oh, God, what was he saying?
Who was on the call here?
Corey Macklin.
Corey Macklin. All right.
Corey Macklin.
Wild USWA action.
Memphis
And there's a
legend,
bottle.
but terrible. Memphis legend, but terrible.
He was so enthusiastic.
Boy, I tell you. That's what I was going to say. Take a shot every time you hear "Boy, I tell you."
USWA action. He's having a hell of a time here. This is a famous feud,
by the way. Passed away many years ago now.
Oh, he's a hoot and a half here. The Moondogs, opposite Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. This is like a thing that Jeff dedicated a whole episode of his pod to, because he said it's like the feud of his career, and people don't know about it because it is very much a niche thing, right? So niche, in fact, when we was looking for what the best thing to do was, we found this was something that had been celebrated on the internet, right? This particular deal from Kennett. And I was thinking, why are there no records of this match? Because it's got like, very, very critically acclaimed reviews. And then I realized, and now I know why. This is no match.
The Robert Fuller match versus the Moondogs that probably didn't last very long. That went, into
I would agree. Because this is a post-match concession stand and all that comes with that. We have brooms. We have all sorts here. This is a very different thing to analyze to the Bockwinkel match. This is not a matter of nuance and polish, folks. This is chaos. As Mr. Macklin said many, many times, unbelievable USWA action. It sure was. Bobby, how familiar are you with this kind of professional wrestling? Because this is very at home into the territory here.
I haven't really seen a ton of USWA stuff. But listen, this was a lot of fun. You got Lawler coming out trying to take their heads off with the brooms. And then just from there, it's just, 10 or 11 minutes just fighting and hitting people with whatever. And, I like these sorts of matches, obviously. I've seen a couple. There's one at Uncensored 1995 between Harlem Heat and the Nasty Boys that I think really kind of does the same sort of thing. But no, this was great. You get the bottles involved and just chaos, man. I enjoy it quite a bit.
It's bloody. There's like the tables are standing. It's just everything's here. The broom is really like Lawler's proficiency with the broom.
He's like at bat with it or something.
He is.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Oracle, do you think it's fair to say this is probably not something that was put together at great length beforehand? I mean, I don't want to get to speak out of turn here, but it feels like the lads are just going for it. To my eye, anyway. I don't know.
Going for it, bro.
Absolutely. What did you think of this?
They're just the deal is like Robert Fuller was involved in like the early portions of the feud or whatever, because you can watch the whole feud on YouTube. It was Jeff and Robert Fuller versus the Moondogs in a tag match, and I don't even know if they have the match. I think they just have this clip on the episode, and the match gets thrown out because like most Moondog matches, just devolves into total chaos. Lawler comes out to help Jarrett, and like Corey Macklin is like, I find Corey Macklin endearing, but I actually do think he's pretty bad. But I also like him at the same time. It's weird.
Right.
Like Corey Macklin's like shouting and like calling it. Everything and they're like brawling over there by the concession stand, and like it's a full-on concession stand, and like got the camera guy like trying to see what's going on in the concession stand, and of course there's mustard and ketchup involved, and like Jeff Jarrett has like cuts or something on his back from like I don't know what it was. Jerry Lawler is swinging this fucking broom like he's like, Reggie Jackson during the fucking, like he's Mr. October in the late 70s for the Yankees or something. like, at one point he keeps swinging, and like the Moondog keeps. At one point he catches one of them like in the ribs, and I'm thinking, "Fuck, that had to hurt."
A lot. Yeah.
They're like throwing like, and those trash cans are not like, they look like those like metal barrel trash
Yes.
cans. They weren't like the plastic ones, which I'm sure probably don't feel well either. When you throw when you get it thrown at you, but they're throwing like the metal ones. And my favorite part of the whole thing is like the carrot pins and like Lawler's like putting one of the Moondog's heads in the sink, and then at one point the Moondog like picks up a trash can or something, and you see a fucking fluorescent light bulb fall from the ceiling. And Corey Macklin goes, "Oh, there goes a light tube there, or a light bulb there falling."
That's what he says.
And they're like, this goes on. It's classic Memphis horseshit.
It's
This goes
so
on for
Memphis,
like 10 or 15 minutes. It's not a match really. It's just a crazy concession stand brawl, which is one of the things that kind of Memphis is known for. Just their crazy angles and brawls, and like this was a great encapsulation of it.
Onita cites the Memphis concession stand brawls, right? With like the idea of FMW and shit, or the big spectacle matches, rather.
He was in one of them, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was in
like 88
Tupelo, the original Tupelo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Fucci, it was Masafucci, and was it Fucci and Onita versus Lawler and somebody, or no?
I believe so.
I think Honky Tonk Man was in one of them too.
I think he was in the original one that like, oh fuck, it's
like 79, right, or something.
Yeah, like may have started like I know that Honky Tonk Man Brawl has something to do with like the advent of the star rating scale, which is fucking hilarious by like modern standards. But yeah,
that's when he had blonde hair and went by Wayne Ferris. But,
Wayne, cousin Wayne.
What about when Lawler just gets
awesome, man? This is like, and to be honest, like you'll get a chuckle, but this is the type of shit that I would see like any level of indie that I went to in the South was like they wanted to emulate the shit, but it was super fun live, right? Like, because it was like I can't tell how many times I saw like concession stand brawls or people getting speared through a bathroom door and shit, and like all kinds of like fun, like crazy false count anywhere brawls and shit that I saw in the 2000s. People trying to like copy this stuff, like because I grew up in North Georgia and Tennessee, and seeing that shit like all over that area, just at, whatever India I went to. This is the type of this is my jam right here. Just like total chaos, mustard jars getting flung at people. At one point, I don't know what it was. There was a bottle. I didn't know what it was. Like Corey Macklin doesn't quite know what he's like. Looks like the Moondog has a bottle there, and he's like he like hits like Lawler or somebody with it. But it's just awesome.
Boy, I tell you.
Yeah, boy, I tell you. Chris Zellner does an incredible Corey Macklin impression. He like on his show Between the Sheets, he does an incredible Corey Macklin impression, but I can't do it as well as he does. But man, this is my jam.
It is actually super important that this was on here, I think. You have to represent this part of Jeff's roots. I mean, and it's saying he has such an affection for, like, he even tried, he did the deal with Mark Briscoe last year, right? Where they had their concessions. Like, he says a huge affinity for this style. It's obviously deeply rooted with his family and so on and so forth. Dude, what about when Lawler just gets like hurled over the concession stand and takes like a flat back?
Dude, when that happened, I literally checked the date again. I was like, this has to be 88 or something. And I was like, 92. It's like, he's about to show up in fucking the WWF here in a few months. Like, yeah.
This USWA is that way in a lot of cases, though, right? Where it's like you kind of check the time because it's hard to compute. I always find USWA stuff hard to compute alongside the other things happening in wrestling at the time. But the early 90s are fascinating in that way. Alex, what did you make of this brawl, we'll call it?
It just quickly piggybacking on that, the USWA always being like this weird time capsule. I recently just discovered, Oracle, I don't know if you ever, it's not often I come across something I had no knowledge of or had never seen ever in wrestling. And during that Jerry Lawler feud with ECW in '97, he was still running USWA, and Tommy Dreamer like invaded the Memphis TV studio.
I've seen it. Yeah,
Dude, and
incredible.
it's like it's so weird because like Lance Russell's like, oh, that's Tommy Dreamer, and Dreamer's like, you know, getting booed by all like the local yokels, and he's like just raising hell in the TV studio. So
It's
strange.
awesome.
And then
Yeah.
to promote ECW or to like educate the local fans on Tommy Dreamer, they, you know, one of the music videos Heyman made, he sent to air there, and Lawler introduces it, and he goes, yeah, and this is a music video on that Tommy Dreamer set to that song by Nirvana, that band that was so good the lead singer blew his brains out. And Lance Russell's just like, oh my.
Let me tell you something. If you want to hear some unbelievable promos that would not fly today, just watch anything from Memphis from like the late 70s to the mid-90s.
Yeah, it makes the Lawler in WWF look tame, right? And I don't mean
Yeah.
that flatteringly necessarily, but yeah.
And that's coming back around. Just I one of the things I am a sucker for is any like forever feuds in wrestling, and like up until Tommy Dreamer's last day in the WWF, anytime Lawler was on commentary and Tommy Dreamer's in the ring, you'd go, oh, it's that idiot Tommy Dreamer. I always thought that was great. This match here, yeah, like I said, I had to check the date, and I was like, holy shit. And, you know, my first immediate note is this is wrestling, all caps, because it's just, you know, the Moondogs, big fucking beer belly, barrel chested dudes with beards and hair and scar
And
tissue
tattoos
everywhere.
at the time, which is not common.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the venue too, which looked to, for the most part, to be just natural light coming in from the side, like the sun was just setting, and they're like, let's just use that. The signature that opens it, the USWA, with that like bronze statue of those two dudes, like Greco-Roman wrestling.
Awesome.
I doubt it's the exact same one, but Jarrett has that in his office, that same statue, like next to his NWA title. It's a nice touch. What we got here? Lawler's punches are amazing. Was this one camera? I like, by the time I realized, I was like, I don't think they've done a cut. I think this is one camera shooting this, which is
Yeah.
always really impressive. And yeah, it works. WWF, AEW, fucking ROH, whoever it is, you run a show anywhere tomorrow, and two wrestlers brawl into the crowd, the concession stand, and someone hits one in the head with a fucking soda or a hot dog or something, people are gonna pop for it. It's just that's obviously, it's a lot more like whimsical now. This is like these two guys, or four guys, excuse me, were trying to kill each other with whatever they could get their hands on, and it's it really does just make for, like, let's put this into perspective. The next match we're covering is Jeff Jarrett wrestling Shawn Michaels in like a fucking WWF classic, and this is where he came from, was doing these fucking concession stand brawls in Tennessee or bumfuck, you know, Georgia, wherever this was. No disrespect to my Georgians out there, Oracle, but like, it's just it was a different game. And the crowd, my favorite thing is too, the few shots that there are, like, you see the crowd, it's not like there's that WWF wall of security or some shit there. They're just like, let's stay back. Let's let these boys, you know, settle their differences. We'll be here to watch and cheer, but we're not going to get too close to the action here. And yeah, my anxiety at one point was like, God, they're right next to that stove. If that thing turns on, one of them, like, you know, it's just thinking about the things these guys clearly didn't think about when doing these brawls. It's a dangerous thing, man.
It is indeed. This is this is
point out the lady you could hear when, like, she goes, "Come on, Jerry."
That's wrestling, though, bro. That's wrestling.
Oracle did call it out though, but there's this part where like Lawler swings the broom and like ends up doing a full 360 because he swung it so hard, and the Moondog ducks, so he just hits him in the fucking ribs with it.
This has got to be the most unique thing that we've had on the Green Grappler listed as a match, right? But we kind of stretched things a little bit to get there, but I'm glad we did. This is something else. I'm intrigued, fellas. Any other matches we could call out as we end the first act? Matches we could call out, anything basically pre-WWF, I guess.
He has a Billy Joe Travis.
Great DVD. Great DVD.
So he has a Billy Joe Travis feud that's pretty. That's apparently pretty good.
He had a good singles match with Lawler, right? Do they have a singles match?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So on this DVD set, the King of the Mountain set, there is a really fun. There's a from 86 to 88, they have a collection of like matches that I guess Jeff just owns the rights to. And one of them is Jeff Jarrett and Bill Dundee versus Gary Young and Cactus Jack. And it's not something that's going to light your world on fire, but just the novelty of watching it is there. And if I remember correctly, it's one of those TV studio matches. And Jarrett with that just platinum blonde hair. And we just talked about Foley 2 months ago. And a wrestler who figured out who he was pretty early in his career, but there is that era beforehand where Foley was just still trying to be like a wrestler. It's one of those interesting ones to watch. It's a good time.
For sure. All right, with that, are we ready to move to the World Wrestling Federation? Are we ready?
For over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
This was that era, for sure. Yeah.
Folks, Bob has an idea of what you should do to the like button before we get there. Bob, what is that idea?
Yeah, smash that like button.
Yes, you should. All right. Here we are in 1995, July 23rd.
It's almost like you pull a lever and his thumb comes up, you know?
Maybe I do. July 23rd, 1995. WWF in your house 2.
The Lumberjacks.
The Lumberjacks, indeed. Jarrett debuted in the WWF in October 93 in a full-time, but he did some shots before that because of the working relationship and so on and so on. But October 93, of course, this is... I guess, would you say this is Jeff's most famous gimmick? Probably is, right?
Yeah.
I guess it depends what you consider a gimmick, I guess. Because in TNA,
Don't Piss Me Off was pretty famous too. And then
Yeah.
J-E-F-F, J-A-R-R, E-double-T, ha ha ha.
Either way, here is Jeff in full cartoon character mode. The roadie, of course, alongside him. I didn't realize.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, mate.
Is there anything wrong with Brian Armstrong's hair in this match?
No, absolutely nothing.
Anything wrong with it?
Absolutely nothing wrong with it. In my head, and I'm not an expert here, but in my mind, it was like he wins the IC title from Razor at the Rumble, right? And then he drops the IC title to Shawn. I didn't realize there was he has 3 title reigns in this time. Are you guys aware of this? This broke my brain today. So he has a deal with Bob Holly where they vacate the belt and then he beats Bob Holly to win it back. And then they do a thing, I want to say in April 95, where Razor wins the belt on a house show and then in the same loop drops it back to Jeff. So I guess that was maybe a thing to increase house show attendance or something. I don't know.
They were doing Razor Jeff Jarrett ladder matches too. One of them made a physical media release, but that was kind of like a touring IC title match they were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where they flipped it. So there you go. Okay, so that makes sense. All right. Either way, July 95 here. And I think what is probably the most critically acclaimed match of Jeff's career, I would say. I mean, the TNA stuff has a higher rating on the famed cage match, but I think if you ask someone what's the greatest Jeff Jarrett match, I think most people would say Shawn Michaels in your house.
And if motherfuckers know ball, this is also one of the most acclaimed matches of Shawn Michaels' career too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I would say more specifically, as a singles, I think this is among his best babyface performances in particular. I think he really strikes a great balance here. We mentioned that on the Mick Foley episode, ironically, with Mind Games. But Oracle, you joked earlier about me popping for the Bok match because it's not forearms and chops. This is...
Oh, brother, this is...
It's just gorgeous, man. It's just the way it flows. I could watch wrestling like this all day. And more, and your taste changes over more and more, this style pops me the most. The way that the high spots are not the high spots are just them hitting the ropes and doing leapfrogs and cross bodies. And it's just beautiful pro wrestling. This is glorious. Love this match. Pumped to talk about. Bobby, I'll go to you first. In your house, Shawn, Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, no, just a tremendous time. Definitely, I think Jeff's best match, most famous match. Obviously we can get into best, and we talk about the other two later. But he did the performance earlier in the show. They were making a big thing about it being in Nashville, and then just kind of immediately once the match started, made sure to establish that he was a heel. And just like you said, the kind of pace, the flow that they have, just throughout the whole thing, it really never strays from that. And just incredible time. Shawn's great in this match. There's the part where Vince's mic goes out, so Jerry Lawler has to do play-by-play, which is unfortunate. But everything other than that is just excellent.
Yeah. Shawn is so good in this match, dude.
He is.
I know we have our fun with Shawn, and I get it. And he had that unfortunate year as an old man where he wore wristbands while he wrestled, and cowboy hats and stuff. But God, he's great here. And his stuff is that perfect blend of it's fluid and effortless, but it still feels physical. He's just right in that regard, And let's be clear, Jeff Jarrett is right there with him.
Oh, yeah.
Right there with him. And his punch, we may have mentioned it in every match, but good God, his punch is just a thing of beauty. Alex, what did you make of this on your latest rewatch? Quite the match.
Yes. So where I fast forwarded on Peacock, and then I got to the point where I pressed play, it was Bob Backlund, talking to the young people in the crowd, and they were still doing that Backlund for president gimmick. And Lawler and Vince have this great back and forth where Lawler's like, I've been listening to a lot of things Bob has to say, and I'm starting to agree with him. I think he's going to have my vote for president. And Vince goes, Bob Backlund? And Lawler goes, no, Bob Dole. It was just, and Vince, I see. It was, one of those only in 95. And then we go from that immediately to Todd Pettengill interviewing Shawn Michaels. He's like, well, I guess you don't need the popular vote to run these days. And in response to that, Shawn Michaels does the Richard Nixon into the camera. So we get two dated presidential references right in time. And then we segue into what we said before we came on the air, that a reference Oracle and I would get, and I guaranteed Joe didn't, is when Jeff Jarrett comes out in his cowboy suit and everything and looking really fucking resplendent. Lawler says something effective. He puts Porter Wagner to shame. And I was like, oh man, talk about a reference that probably no one outside of the South would get, talking about the Grand Ole Opry and Porter Wagner. So that popped me huge. Shawn looks unbelievable here with this beard, and if you watched his promo before the match, I don't mean to imply that he may have been on anything, but he trips over his words a little bit. But in classic Shawn fashion, during this time, it didn't matter when he got to the ring. This is Shawn Michaels to me. So many people confuse the 02 to 09, 2010.
2010, yeah.
They confuse that with this. No. That Shawn Michaels was like laying the groundwork for what we see now with acting and shit.
Laying the groundwork. So mean.
This Shawn Michaels was a fucking dick who wanted to show that he was the best wrestler in the company and could have the best matches. And more often than not, it's what led to really good shit, especially in 95. Shawn is fantastic in 95. 96 is when it starts to kind of get out of control and you end up with shit like the Vader match and stuff like that. But he's on fire here. Jeff's on fire. And it's one of those matches you can tell that the guys get amped up because they know how into it the crowd is. Towards the end, towards that closing stretch, you can see how eager they are to keep pushing on with everything because they know they have the crowd at a fever pitch. And it is. It's in Nashville, and they work this classic, just Nashville style match. A lot of it's built around punches for the first, the first act of the match is just guys missing punches or landing punches. And Shawn takes that hellacious backdrop, which of course you posted on Twitter today, which he did more than once, which is insane. Yeah. We get a few moments of work rate, and then we get probably the best dropkick of Jeff Jarrett's career. He lands this beautiful, heat-seeking missile, both feet right into the face of Shawn Michaels, a thing of beauty. We do get the Glage sleeper hold here, for those who don't know. Of Attitude Era podcast fame, GLARGH-GHEY. It's believed that when Jeff would lock in a sleeper hold with the guy shooting off the ropes, he would say, I got him. But more often than not, he would just yell it in one non-breaking word. and it would sound like, "Ah, guys." So that's if you ever watch a Jeff Jarrett match, listen closely. Shawn, back to what I was saying about like just feeding off the crowd. Shawn, in a rarity, kips up not after his flying forearm, but a clothesline, and it's one fluid motion. He just takes Jeff's head off with a clothesline, rolls onto his back, and kips up. And like I said, crowd's at a fever pitch. Vince is at a fever pitch doing the every near fall. Oh, Tony got it. No, doing that shit over and over and over again. It's over. Yes, yes, yes. God bless. And the miscue leads to the finish, in which the bad guy's manager thinks he hooks the good guy's foot, but he actually doesn't. And then I can't remember which episode it was we talked about this, but I am, especially as I've aged, I think my favorite little referee cadence was Earl Hebner in really big or really hot title matches he officiated in the WWF. When it was the finish, he would slow his count down to like stress the moment. And I know you could take that as kind of like a liberties with the match or whatever, but I always thought it was great specifically for WWF matches, because that shit wouldn't work in every territory. But he does that here, and he especially takes his time between the second and third fall, and it makes the impact of it and the crowd reaction that much bigger when Shawn wins. I think this is a top 3 Shawn match, top 3 Jeff Jarrett match. So I'm not like trying to say that Jeff had a bunch of other all-timers like this, but this is unbelievable. And it's so funny to think about the reaction to the In Your House shows at the time, because in the same year you have this and then Bulldog and Brett at the December show, which we've talked about on the show, and we believe they're true classic. And the reaction was like, that's the B tier show. You get shit like this. So this is not one of those matches that you hear. If you've never seen it, this is not one of those that you hear about over and over and you watch it and it feels kind of underwhelming. This is
that's great.
In regardless of era, it's a fantastic match.
Look how mad Bob is at that Earl Hebner praise. Fellas, look at him. He's absolutely enraged. Can't handle it. Unbelievable. You get the trademark Shawn double down here, which that's like a famous Shawn thing, right? He'll just sit double down as long as he feels necessary to get the reaction he wants. Yeah, man. This is tremendous, Oracle, isn't it? My goodness.
Oh, yeah. A match that I've liked for 20 years, I've loved this match for 20 years, that's probably the first time I saw it was somewhere around then. And, I mean, just the pacing, the fluidity of it, like the timing, like just the confidence they have when they're just moving in there and like doing the like spots where Rhodey gets involved, and it's just like everything just flows so well. It can be done today. There are people like FTR and others who can kind of do that type of pace where like you can do a lot of stuff going on and hit things and
yeah.
But it's an extremely difficult. I would imagine it's an extremely difficult thing to do, and like these guys are just like they're listening and feeding to the crowd, and like it's incredible to watch. They do that sequence where they do the near fall stuff with the sunset flip, like kind of like I guess probably about 2/3 into the match, and it's like it's incredible.
Yeah.
Of course, that I hadn't seen this match in several years, but I had forgotten that Shawn takes that back body drop over the turnbuckle. Insane.
So do I. Yeah.
Just insane. Great near falls. Everything's paced like just the structure. I don't know. It's like the perfect. It's one of the better. Well, this is probably like a. I don't know, top 10, 15 match in WWF in the 90s, right? Top 10 match in the 90s. Sure. I mean, just a tremendous match.
Oracle, would you would you agree that this match like stands as a testament to like have an idea of what you're going to do and then respond to how the crowd reacts on it, as opposed
absolutely,
to
yeah.
having every single
Yeah.
thing like laid out ahead of time and just doing that regardless of how the crowd reacts to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like, but it's so impressive because they're so good that like when you watch it, you don't even it almost looks mapped out
Mhm.
because they're reacting to everything, but they do it so fluidly and so effectively that it almost looks like they planned it out. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. They're
Yeah.
they're such pros that it looks
I
seamless
think it
to them,
also
you know?
it helps that their stuff isn't like intricate in terms of there being like big setups for their
No.
stuff, right? Their
No.
stuff is like very easy to plug in,
Yeah.
which helps. There was a quote from Jeff, I think this week. It really stood out, sorry. He was saying about how like it kind of frustrates him that the idea of what they could have done, because I think he's right to say it in terms of this is not a main event on the show. This is not the blow off to a big feud. Like, it's just a way to switch the IC belt.
The main event
And
was Sid and Diesel.
it sure was.
Yeah, and
And
the lumberjack match, right? That's why it's called
what's
lumberjacks.
what's amazing about this match is we just said all these things about it, but it's actually a pretty restrained effort.
It is,
Right?
yeah. It's just
It's just
so
executed perfectly.
to
Yeah.
watch them because it stands out more now because I mean, and like I said, like that's why there's a million reasons why I like FTR, but they can wrestle that way where
Yes,
you
yeah.
know they can just sort of go with it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody really does. I mean, they certainly don't do that WWE, you know, and I like WWE, but I mean, nobody's out there, you know, all those
I
matches
like
are rehearsed and like,
You know, it's a good example. It's not as good as this by any stretch, so don't get carried away. I can't remember. We talked about this on a Grin Grappler not long ago, but the Miro and Hobbs match from last year that clearly was just in response to like what the crowd was asking for.
yeah.
That felt, you remember that shit so much more than just like guy. And what I'm trying to get, that was also restrained. They were just like clotheslining each other and throwing each other. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like you used the word intricate earlier. It wasn't like fucking Zack Sabre Jr. doing some shit out there.
Right.
no,
Like
no.
that shit is so much more memorable. And you watch this and you see how the crowd reacts to, by the end, every singular thing that they're doing, and that's the art that stands out so much more than just someone going out there and doing A, B, and C so that the crowd does this. Like, it's a
It's
different set
that-
of skills.
Yeah.
To me, this is like the perfect mid-card title match in the history of the company in terms of like
Yeah.
Mhm.
like there's a heel face dynamic. There's like that southern stick a little bit there because they're in Nashville, but they
Mhm.
don't like go too overboard. Like there's near falls, there's big spots, but everything's spaced out and
Yeah.
you know,
Hilariously, because
it's really good stuff.
I read today some promotion announced Ziggler and Del Rio are wrestling again. But to kind of like an equivalent to this of a mid-card title match, that match they had at that Payback show that
Mhm.
was amazing.
Mhm.
They barely did anything. It's just like the crowd was responding, and so they just started milking everything the crowd was responding to.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the calling it on the fly element, but the thing that really stands out of this, and actually, Oracle, you made the FTR thing, and I think this is another thing that is in their matches, which is why you and I as losers love their stuff so much. It's like I also sometimes we get so bogged down in the analysis of structure and selling and storytelling and all these terms we throw around. There is something to be said, and this is the truthful part of my chop bit, which I have fun with. The motion of a great wrestling match is it's just nice to
The
watch.
rhythm?
sometimes. The rhythm, that
There you go.
seesaw
There's a
rhythm.
great
Thank you.
poster.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Joe, because
No,
it
you're fine.
reminds me of a great poster, an all-time poster of the message boards guy who goes by the name of Otani's Jacket, OJ.
Yes.
He talks about rhythm and wrestling constantly. He uses that word frequently in his post. He
It's
always
real.
talks about the rhythm of a match. Yeah.
It's
It
real, and that when I would do matches, I'd say seesaw rhythm, and I didn't mean momentum shifts. What I meant is that particular pace that's hard to put your finger on unless you're watching it, of slow down and then go again. And the motion of watching great wrestlers run the ropes and watching them plug their stuff in. I mean, I think it's the hardest part of a great wrestling match to describe, as you can tell as I'm trying to do it now.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually the most, like, it's the thing that I come back to a lot, you know? It's special.
Because there's also, like, I'm not going to pretend for a second like there's not irony in me talking about this. And then one of my favorite modern matches is Goldberg and Lesnar from 33, where every single thing of that match was clearly laid out beforehand. And you want to talk about rhythm? That's just fucking like heavy metal, like.
Right. You need both, right?
Also 4 minutes.
Exactly. There's
and they
things
know,
that,
and they know that's what you know. And they if
Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher is one of my favorite matches of all time, and like that's.
Right. Yeah.
I can't particularly say much of that is in response to the way the crowd's reacting. I think they were just like, well, let's go out there and see what happens. Joe Kobashi's a good example because they really like, there's a rhythm to that of like, that's more of a rising action because that match builds to like this massive crescendo when they start doing like the suplexes and shit. But yeah, bringing it back to here in, even now, I cannot wait to see what Brian and Jarrett do tomorrow. You know, it's a big deal because I'm going to be watching Dynamite. It's what a fascinating, like, if I worked in AEW, if I was a wrestler there, I can't think of anybody's brain I'd want to pick more than Jeff of like, even, you know, Arn was there for a while, but Jeff Jarrett has been relevant in wrestling for 35 years and like the generations he's lived through and still managed to figure out how to get crowds involved in his matches and stuff. Like it's, and we take it back to here and I'm sure tomorrow he's going to have him clapping Memphis style. So
I'm sure, dude. I'm sure. Yeah, this was, it's funny and it's something we talk about a lot. It's like, it's why the kind of star rating stuff, and I don't mean that as a knock star ratings. Like, I use star ratings when I'm doing my reviews and stuff. It's a gauge, right? It's fine. But it's a good example of how they tell so little of the story in the sense that I don't know if this is like, you know, your 5-star epic because it's not trying to be that.
Yeah.
But this is so
But it's
pleasant.
a shining example of what pro wrestling can be.
Yeah, and it's just pleasant to watch too. Like, I could rate this. I think I did rate this the same as the Kurt match we'll get to in a minute. But I would watch this like 10 times before I watch that twice. Not because that's not good, but because I find this enjoyable to just watch, sit back and enjoy it. You know, it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
That's
absolutely.
You know, if I did do star ratings or if I sat down and compared like, you know, the seconds, I have said on record numerous times the first Okada Omega match is like one of the best matches I've ever seen. But exactly what you said, I could see myself just watching this again instead because it's like I'll laugh and I'll like clap at it and stuff like that. Like Okada Omega is like the fucking English Patient. You just kind of watch it like this. You're like, okay.
Movies are like that too, right? Like there's some movies I loved. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't need to watch regularly. I mean, they're so it's. I think there's something to that. All right. Calling it
Joe,
on the fly here.
Yeah, we got big problems down here. We have a question in the chat though about if this match is better than the HBK Razor match from SummerSlam. And honestly, a few years ago, I might have flip-flopped my answer, but I'd say yes now. I'd rather rewatch this than the ladder match.
I think so. They're both great. I think the SummerSlam ladder match is like criminally underrated in history because people just think of Mania.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a lot of I could make a pretty strong argument the SummerSlam ladder match is actually better, but
there's several moments in that are far more brutal than anything that happened in the WrestleMania 10 ladder match.
Yeah. Shawn, I recently got the
and you get Shawn throwing a hissy fit twice in that match, which is funny too.
Indeed. I recently got the Prelude to Attitude DVD set, which is 96, best of 96. Yeah. I don't know if they released that for you guys, Alex. I don't know. It might have been a UK thing because it was in like the pandemic. And I got to watch a lot of Shawn on that. And he is a very, very fun wrestler to watch in that era. The Vader match is complicated because of how political it is. And it's once you see it through that lens, you can't enjoy it as much as you'd like to.
There's some moments of brilliance in it for sure.
Yes. It's just what's frustrating is it's very much Vader plugged into the kind of match Shawn would have with like Sid. And it's like at that point, why have Vader? You know?
Yeah.
but yeah. Shawn has obviously some great stuff in this era. Okay, we'll move forward. Oracle was going to go last on the next match. There's not a lot to talk about this match, though, so we'll probably bounce around a little bit, folks. We hope you're enjoying this. I'll say it for Bob this time. Smash the like button, all those wonderful things. Up next, we have the deep cut of our selections, right? We have this was Alex, this was one you circled, and I actually thought this was a great call. We wanted to represent the Jeff and Owen team that, quite frankly, I don't know if there is a worse era for them to have existed in terms of producing great matches, right? Like, obviously the act works for this, obviously, goes without saying, but like, I think if you put this team, this version of this team, at any other point in history, they have like classic matches. I think Jeff's skill set, I think we've seen this in AEW, is quietly really well suited to being in a tag team anyway. But here we are for the match that we picked to represent that team.
For our purposes, I was hoping to find, and they did wrestle in probably the most of any tag team. I wanted to find like a New Age Outlaws match because you and I, Joe, and Bobby was at the Collision. We got to see that angle that Jarrett did with Billy Gunn in 2023, and it was like, it'd be fun if we found a match with it. But like, they were all 4-minute matches on Raw, and I am assuming most of them just revolved around talking about Deborah's breasts. So I was like, I need to find something that actually has some meat to it.
Yeah, it's also we'd be featured. Road Dogg would be in 2 matches that you can't. Yeah. So this is the February 6th, 1999 WWF Shotgun Saturday Night. Blew my mind this show was still going. We talked about this on the Sid episode in 97. Here we are in 99. This was taped January 26th, 99. They had won the belts, I'm pretty sure the day prior, or somewhere around there. I don't know, close. Boss Man and Shamrock, they'd won the belts from, right?
Yes.
Either way, close to when they tape this. And they are opposite here in a non-title match, the Job Squad combination of Bob Holly and Too Cold Scorpio. Just Scorpio in this case. We have the announce team here of Kevin Kelly and Bruce Pritchard, which is
Nightmare Blunt rotation.
For some perspective on the time, Kevin Kelly leads by putting over the halftime heat viewership, which is an immediate like, oh shit, we're here. That's where we're at. So this is a fascinating match in that, I mean, ultimately, if you were just to describe it, something, you'd say it's a C-show tag. I mean, but there's 2 different things happening at once here. As Scoop and Owen are just having these just wonderful. Oh, it's just beautiful. And Bob Holly and Jeff Jarrett clash in this as though they've never met. I'd assume Jeff was on Bob's shit list, as many others were. I think he was. I think he gets buried in the book, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. They have an interesting time here. Some clashes, I think it's fair to say, in timing, which are even more odds when compared to Owen and Scorpio. I did a little research. So Owen and Scorpio worked in New Japan in 91. They had like 1 singles, and they teamed up a couple times too, which is hilarious to compare to 99 Shotgun Saturday Night here. So a moment in time, Bobby, but a fun look. And I know a period of Jeff's career that obviously he's super proud of. What did you make of this little C-show tag?
Yeah. Well, just real quick on the Jeff and Owen team, if you liked the video that they did on Jeff, for the Owen, his podcast about the Owen stuff in particular is very good from a couple of years ago. Definitely check that out. Didn't want to forget that.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I like all 4 of these guys. I thought I was going to enjoy this. I'm watching 1994 right now where, Jeff and Harker Holly kind of both came in at the same time. There's a couple matches. They were good. And then, we got into this one and just there's not much to it. Like you said, the Owen and Scorpio stuff is good, but everything else is just tough to get through.
There's a hilarious Bob's hot tag. It goes awry rather swiftly, and I would love to have been, fly on the wall when they got back through the curtain. Fucking up Bob Holly's hot tag would not be where I'd want to be, to be honest with you. But interesting match here, Alex. This is an intriguing one.
He does come close to taking Jarrett's head off with a clothesline at one point.
He does.
Pretty stiff-ski. It's funny you called out the commentary team because that's my first note is, oh God. Owen and Scorpio started, like I said, they're just doing work rate. They're doing the fucking virtual pro wrestling 2 lockup where work the arm, and then you flip and then kip up out of it and that type of shit. Jeff Jarrett hits a single arm DDT, which I remember playing as him on Attitude for the Sony PlayStation. That was why I play with him, because you could do a single arm DDT with him, because I thought that move was cool. Shameful reminder of what I said. Deborah basically existed to be a pair of breasts, and they use that as like the lead into the commercial break of like, oh, is she gonna show him? It's ridiculous. The one I watched though had it kept the commercials in from the time period, which had a Twix commercial that I had remembered. It made me nostalgic for days of yore, and it has at the bottom the watermark on the screen was NY55, which was most of the versions of Shotgun Saturday Night you're going to find online were ripped from that local market,
because it was syndicated, right? Shotgun Saturday Night.
Yeah, Bob Holly hot tag. Holly, this was during that era where he was using the Falcon Arrow, and I can't remember how far into the 2000s he used the Falcon Arrow. How did he learn that? Like, that's one of those things I watch. Is there like a story?
I don't think so. We need the second Bob Holly book for that. But Kevin Kelly has never seen this maneuver, and he declares it to be a modified vertical suplex, which, I mean, you know, in a roundabout way, right? Which is funny considering the wrestling Kevin Kelly would ultimately end up calling. but yeah, modified vertical suplex, bro.
I just love the idea of like 99 Bob Holly on the road getting like Hayabusa tapes.
Right.
Being like, yeah, I'm going to use this move on TV. Finish is really smooth, though.
Yes.
It's Owen is, besides the stuff he does with Scorpio here, he's even then he's still kind of doing everything with like kind of like a sarcastic edge to it, which is, you know, all the stories you hear about Owen. Like if you ever saw him wrestle a house show, like he did everything kind of just in jest. There's that famous story of somewhere in California where him and Foley tried to have the worst match possible because they knew Meltzer was in the crowd. Like that's real wrestling to me, dude. And in this case, it's 10 minutes. I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. It's just kind of a fascinating little blip on the radar of the things they're putting out there. And they were tag champions at the time, like we said. It's interesting because of that they were a tag team for less than 6 months, but it still clearly meant so much to Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it did. Hello, Oracle.
Hey there, guys.
You got yourself a nice couple of drinks, maybe?
I did. I got me a fan of pineapple here.
Was it a purposeful bit to spend 10 minutes talking about the power of calling it in the ring and then drop us a private chat and ask us to fill in some gaps while we're going long?
I was actually surprised I only took 10 minutes. I thought I was going to be like 15.
You were very quick, yeah. But yes, Alex, to your point, it's not bad. It's a C-show tag, right? The Holly Jarrett element does give it a little quirkiness. By the way, Jeff's drop kick is still very much intact here, huh? Looks beautiful.
And Jeff, like on a shotgun taping, did that spot where he goes for a Hurricane Rana and gets countered into a sit-out powerbomb because he thinks he's in fucking Tokyo Dome.
Tremendous stuff. Oracle, I'm intrigued what you made. We were just talking about it. It's a unique dynamic in that Owen and Scorpio are having, to me, a very different match. The one that Bob and Jeff are having, almost reluctantly, seemingly, but fun little piece of business on Shotgun Saturday. What did you make of this?
Yeah, I always forget that Job Squad was a thing.
Yeah, me too.
And I also forget that Scorpio had like the cool looking long braids or whatever at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The things that stood out to me the most were like Bruce Pritchard on commentary, which was amusing. And it always pops me that like watching Owen, like he was always one of those guys who was like having just, you know, he's just trying to have kind of a straight wrestling match. You know, his effort might vary, but like, he was just trying to have like a regular straight wrestling match, classic style wrestling match in the middle of like Vince Russo's horseshit booking, and it was always very respectable, like
Yes.
perfect form on the body slam, all this shit, and like
He's so good. Yeah.
all this other horse shit that's going on around him. He's just trying to have a match, Yeah, this was a very solid C-show match. Like, I feel like, this era has been kind of unexplored, wink, wink, of that type of stuff, and like, it's interesting to me how many little gems there could be found in there. But
I agree. Someone should do a show like that,
Yeah, I agree.
Be good. All right, let's put a bow on Act 2. Other matches to call out. I'll do it. I'll get out of the way. I don't want Alex to, because God knows how he'll phrase it. The ladder match with Chris Benoit is incredible, horrifying, but incredible.
Mongo and Benny versus Eddie and Jarrett, both those matches from Nitro are awesome.
Oh, good call. Yeah, good call.
97. Yeah.
Alex brought up earlier also, I actually do really like the match with X-Pac from SummerSlam 98. Any others? Again, we're pairing WCW with this because the WCW, unfortunately, whatever you think of his credibility as a top guy and his credentials to be a top guy, that era is like entirely at odds with having good wrestling matches. Like, there's no chance. You can't do it.
The Good Housekeeping match is like better than you would expect it to be.
And significant, right? It deserves being referenced for sure. And there's a whole bunch of lore that comes with it, which is always appreciated. I guess in that vein, the Booker T match from Bash at the Beach is not a great wrestling match, but is very significant, and
I watched
it's a pretty good match.
Live, and that was kind of the match where I became a Booker T fan.
It's a good match.
That's the one WCW pay-per-view I saw as it aired. How funny is that? Bash at the Beach 2000.
That's when you knew you were destined.
Of all the WCW papes I got to see live as a kid, that was the one.
God, that rules. That's awesome. Alex, we're doing other call-outs from this act. I did it for you regarding the Benoit ladder match.
I didn't get to make my regulatory joke on here.
The X-Pac SummerSlam match I referenced. Any others come to mind, mate?
So people say he had a couple of good pay-per-view matches with Dean Malenko in WCW, but
one of them was okay.
Yeah, I can't test that.
One of them is okay. I watched it in the last year, Joe. It's okay. It's not bad. It's okay.
But it's not like blow away.
Feels like a Styles Clash, bits aside.
Yeah.
No, it is AJ comes in the next act.
Fuck you.
SummerSlam 94, him and Mabel have like a 5-minute match that's such like fucking 90s pro wrestling, but it's a lot of fun. We talked about the Razor stuff. I can't think of like a bad match they had.
The Razor match with the Rumble 95 is the one where Razor's legs hurt. That match rules. Right?
I believe so. Don't they open WrestleMania 11? Or no. The fucking Allied Powers open.
It's the Blue Brothers versus Lex and Davey. What was their tag team name? Allied Powers?
The Allied Powers, yeah. And the theme song was the mix of the fucking American National Anthem and Rule Britannica. Okay. The one and only WCW show I went to was the November 22nd, 1999 Nitro. And it had a Bret Hart versus Jeff Jarrett match, which as a kid and as an adult, there's really not a match more tailor-made for Alex than that match. And it's fine. It's 99 Nitro, so you know what you're getting into. And I always just assumed they had a bunch of other matches like from WCW or WWF or anything. And in preparation for this, looked it up, and they only wrestle each other twice. Once on Monday Night Nitro and once on Monday Night Raw. So I did go back and revisit the Monday Night Raw match. It is awesome. It's when William Shatner did like a guest spot to promote some fucking movie or TV show he was on. So Jeff Jarrett had the roadie in his corner, and Bret had William Shatner in his. And the promo for it, of course, William Shatner's like, they call him the roadie, but when I'm done with him, he'll be roadkill. And then you have Bret coming in going, "That's right, Bill Shatner." So you know what you're in for. D'Lo and Don't Piss Me Off Jeff had some fun matches for the time period.
I believe that, yeah.
And look, it ain't a classic, but that match he had with China, his last match, the
That
crowd
match is
is
good.
hot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, Bobby, for sure. That needs to be brought up, I agree.
and it also, that's a perfect segue to our next act, because Jeff Jarrett, being one of the only guys to ever successfully hold Vince up for money, held him up for, I don't know, some people say as much as $250,000 for that China match, and that's what, according to lore, he used to fund the beginning of TNA. Do I believe every part of that story? No. But does it make a good story? Absolutely.
Sure. Yes, it does. Jeff has called the summer of 2001, he does this, he calls it the summer of no worries. But what rules, he always says it like it's like a really catchy moniker. Like he says it with real pride. He goes, "Oh, that's the one. That's the one we called it, the summer of no worries." And it just it rules.
2001, the Greed match on No One's fun. Dusty and Dustin,
Yes,
Jeff and Rick. That match is good.
and it's proper WCW, like actual WCW shit too. That's fun. Good call.
That's a great show. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. That show's actually great.
Yeah, it's ironic, really. It really is.
Yeah, and he, you know, the WCW thing is, as we'll talk about more as we transition this next act, he was still capable. The problem was he hitched his wagon to somebody, bro.
His match in Memphis against Big Bubba Rogers on Nitro was awesome in like late October '96. Like
96, yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Bubba still had some juice in that era.
Bubba and John Tenta have an awesome like sack of quarters on a pole match at Bash of the Beach '96.
Yeah, the one where like Jimmy Hart's like 25 feet.
They made the pole like fucking 18 feet tall and thought fucking John Tenta's fat ass was going to be able to get up there.
That's Oracle. That's before Big Bubba's comeback as an elite C show worker in the early 2000s, as you know.
Right.
Dude, what was I watching? He made it through the invasion. I was watching something, and like he was teaming with Booker T in late 2001. There's shit that'll just pop up sometimes. Like seeing Big Boss Man wrestle on the SmackDown stage with the fist, it was like, what the fuck?
Didn't they play around with the idea of him and Hennig as like an old lad team?
Yes, that was at the very tail end of his run in the spring of 2002. So
because I saw him,
Boss Man came back in late 2001 and paired up with Booker and Vince, and feuded with Rock and Austin on TV for like a month, leading into the Rumble.
One of the dark matches at the Raw I went to, the first Raw I ever went to in Austin, Texas, at the Frank Irwin Center, was in the build to WrestleMania 18, and the dark match on it. One of them was Big Boss Man against Red Dog, who later became known as Rodney Mack.
Good worker.
Oh shit!
And that's when Boss Man was doing the Bundy thing of he wanted a 5 count. The other dark match on that show, Perry Saturn against Paul London, and this is February or March of 2002. And Paul London really stood out. I was like, man, that kid was really good. So I went home and typed his name into Google, and Alex learned a whole lot of things. What is Ring of Honor? Who is this?
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that rules. So, Act 3, with the summer of no worries in his rearview mirror. TNA is founded. Jeff Jarrett. TNA founder Jeff Jarrett, official term. And we have all that followed with that. And boy, you talk about something that's complicated, right? Like TNA, Jeff Jarrett. Forget the founding part. This has got to be, Alex, and you talked about earlier the message boards and such. This has got to be the most contentious part of his career, right? In terms of like just fan disapproval. I mean, even the last match we do here, which is a tremendous match, he gets the no, hey, goodbye treatment on the way out. Even in that, because there is just a baked-in resentment. He's the founder, and as we know, he's going to be the top guy for some time to come. Very complicated. Very complicated.
It's important to keep in mind that during this, the entire reason people are looking for an alternative is because Triple H is dominating everything that's happening in the main event scene. And then they turn to TNA, and there's these small moments of teasing that make you think it's going to go somewhere else. And Yeah, just getting ahead of it. Like I threw my hands up when he beat Monty Brown at Final Resolution 2005. I was like, "Fuck this!" Like this.
Right, and I think we're about to cover one of the first examples of people getting real mad about Jeff winning a match in TNA. As here we are, April 30th, 2003, Jeff Jarrett and Raven, NWA World's Heavyweight title on the line. The most significant match of TNA's first year of existence. There's famous stories of the house they drew and the way people went to this thing. They really did build it up some. Raven debuted, I want to say, in January, and they really built this up some.
If you don't mind me giving a little bit of context.
Please do, yeah.
So Raven was pretty much relegated to like Sunday Night Heat for the last year of his WWF run. And even when he got brought in, there's that famous or infamous story of he somehow got signed during the last few months of ECW, and Vince walked into a TV taping and saw him there and said, "Who the fuck signed Raven?" There's a story about that. And but he got into really good shape, and he looked like he did in this match here, and people still thought there was gas in the tank with old Scott Levy. And when he left and went to TNA, people like wanted to believe that he could be a difference maker still. And I've never been one of those Raven guys that thought Raven's greatest match ever is the Goldberg US title match from Nitro. I've never been one of those guys that like thought he was revolutionary or anything like that. But the idea of this match and the build to it clearly captivated a crowd, an audience that wanted something different than what the WWF was offering them. And I posted on Twitter today, and I don't think it's out of line to say it was like the biggest match that happened in the United States after WCW had closed up until that point, in terms of anticipation. And I looked up, I listened to Jarrett's podcast about it, and also Dave's contemporary reports. Meltzer reported that it was 1,400 people attended, and they turned away 1,100 people. So, like, there was a demand there. And the number he said was it did an $80,000 boost to their other weekly pay-per-view revenue. Like, that's how much like it sold, like the ticket sales and how much the demand was there for the match. And then the match happened, and that business didn't come back. But the point being, this match, people saw it as a very big deal at the time.
Yes. And I think it delivers on that hype to an extent. I have issues with the match. I have maybe even a hot take of the match I shared with Alex before we went live, but I'll get to that in a moment. Bobby, I'll go to you first. Firstly, had you seen this before? Secondly, what did you think of it?
No, I'd heard about it. I'd never seen it. It's pretty kind of like I know they had a couple matches, didn't they? If I'm remembering correctly.
Later down the road.
Like this is the match,
No, and I have heard of it. Like, this was at the time, like from what I was reading earlier today, like the biggest match in TNA up to this point so far. It delivers, man. Like, it gets a little overbooked and whatever, convoluted at the end, but like overall, it's tremendous. Jeff gets busted open and just kind of goes with it from there, and they keep the intensity the whole time. It feels like a kind of big match, feels like a big main event, and it really delivered.
Yeah, it definitely has a big fight feel, relative to the setting. It absolutely does. And the blood comes early, and you kind of get a sign of things to come with that. Like, they start with a traditional opening, and then they do like interference, chair shot, blood, dueling dives. You kind of go, okay, this is going to be a little bit crazy. And they work super, super hard. Oracle, what did you make of this?
So, I remember this feud vividly. I feel like we got this show.
My God.
I feel like my uncle got this show.
You were part of the revenue
21
boost.
years,
God.
But I'm pretty sure I saw this match live. I forget that Jarrett was a baby face, because my memory is that, like, we had not gotten a TNA pay-per-view in a few months or whatever, and suddenly he was a babyface or something at one point. It was weird to me.
Because he's like NWA through and through, or whatever the fuck.
It's like it was weird. I was like, all that aside, to be honest with you, I was a huge Raven mark at this time as a kid. I thought he was fucking cool. Like, I was 10 years old. Like, I thought like the look, like I thought
he looks awesome here, and especially like just being the long-term fans we are, I can't believe the shape he was in this match, dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like going off the rails a little bit here, like I thought he was like a fun hardcore champion, you know. And again, I was a kid. I was 8 years old when he was hardcore champ, whatever. So I thought he was a fun hardcore champion, and I loved his WWF music. With the crow stuff. Like when I was doing backyard wrestling, I would come out to Raven's theme song.
Hell yeah, dude! From the Bowery.
Will not waste my time. Whatever the hell that shitty lyrics were. Like I would come out to that shit. And it's so funny because now I'm getting memories of like we had the garage door, we'd open it, you'd come out with your fucking music. Yeah, that and the Taz theme I would come out to. Both those are my favorites. Just another victim.
Okay, the Cypress Hill version.
You wanna be a thug superstar.
Just another victim.
Yeah, so I was a huge Raven fan. I stayed a Raven fan all the way up to his title reign in 2005. And even into his feud with Zbyszko a little bit. After that, it was like, okay, he's washed it. You know, it's like it was obvious to me he was washed up after that. But like that 3-year run he had from 2003 to 2005 was like that was a pretty good career revival for him, all things considered. Yeah, this match is it's funny. Like it's a famous match. It did good business for them. But I mean, of course, Scott Levy and Jeff Jarrett are going to have smoke and mirrors and horseshit in their fucking match. Like,
of course,
it's totally obvious their match is going to have all kinds of fucking wacky, like, crazy shit. Because I'm not a Raven mark. I don't even like his EC. I like the angles and feuds that he has in ECW. I think his matches fucking suck in ECW mostly.
The double dog collar match is a classic.
Yes, it is. That match is great. And the WrestlePalooza match with Dreamer is great. But like everything else is like.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking out loud because I agree with you in the sense of like it's. Just...
I like his stuff in WCW actually, Raven. Not just the Goldberg match. I actually like him. I like his stuff in WCW.
Stuff with DDP.
I like the tag with Saturn. I like the feud with Saturn.
Oh yeah, Fall Brawl is that 98? The Perry Saturn Raven match. You want to talk about a hot crowd, brother?
Hell yeah. So he's definitely a guy who like, and Jarrett's like, because TNA Jarrett especially would do all these sort of like interferences and like ridiculous horse shit that he had fucking Vince Russo masterminded together with all the fucking interferences. And Raven is, I mean, you watch any Raven match since 1995. I mean, every one of his matches has like 20, has like everybody interfering. So both those guys together is not gonna. The horse shit's going to come with it. Of course, the argument is that maybe Raven should have won or whatever. This is a super entertaining match. It's very good. It's got blood, which I mean that's always going to pop me. Both guys have some awesome visuals when they're bleeding. There's like that close up of Jeff where he's like covered in blood. There's like great visual where Raven's standing up and he's got the sweat and blood on his face. I love the spot where like all the stuff with Jeff in the handcuffs and he's like trying to fight back and he makes a pin cover in the handcuffs is awesome. The interference is like gets totally absurd. I totally forget that like ECW had their own like faction in TNA at the time. And then, of course, they get the lights go out. Of course, Sabby comes, but The funniest part of the whole match is Sabu like leaps and like just decides to give a fucking Arabian press to a fan. Like,
Dude, that was
he's
crazy.
down there checking, and some fan is like,
And like they were in agony.
writhing
Do we
in
have
pain,
any?
and like,
Do we know anything about that? Like,
We have an update.
because like, he checks, but the fan doesn't look to be in a good place before he leaves. He just sort
they
of
look hurt.
really
Like,
hurt. Yeah.
If it had been his uncle, he would have thrown a fireball in his face.
But yeah, this is like it's extremely entertaining, but it's also too much at the same time.
Yeah.
They could have stripped away like half of the shit that they did, and I think it would have been even better. And of course, they could have switched who won the match too, and all that stuff. But a very good match, a very memorable match, very entertaining one. A match that I have not seen in years and years. And I'm glad I rewatched it because this was a really big feud at the time.
For sure. Yeah, interesting piece of history. It's, to your point, I said it to Alex before we went live. I think this is the one Raven match. Like, he's built a career on smoke and mirrors and shenanigans, but I actually think there's evidence here that, like, they could have actually had a great world title match, I think, with just a little sprinkling of smoke and mirrors shenanigans. I don't know, man. The heat is amazing for this. They have that one instance where they do like they get their wires crossed and Jeff does like a cutter into a double down, which is a little weird.
Oh yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Alexis Lurie, also
Yes.
known as Mickey James of Grin
Grappler,
Grappler,
right?
Yeah, Grin Grappler. Takes a hellacious bump on Jeff's comeback where he gets a triple feed, which is beast. Yeah,
Julio De Niro of future Grin Grappler fame.
Well,
where was Phil during all this, or does he not come till later? He comes later. Doesn't he?
This may have already been after the split due to a guy whose name rhymes with Saab Kindstein.
No, that was an early 04.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ahead of us.
Because Punk was Punk. I think Punk came after this.
Doing all that and it not even being that is amazing. Yeah, this is definitely before because the Punk Joe trilogy is like the rebuild from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Cobb, whatever name you use there, Cobb.
Is it? That was
because 04 is, remember?
Yeah, because the Raven Punk feud is like starting to go on right at this point, but it was ironic because Punk was part of was part of Raven's. What did he call what did he call his crew in TNA?
Oh fuck.
I can't remember. But he was part of that group in TNA.
Yes.
They were together while they were feuding in Ring of Honor.
Yes.
Okay, so what was the date on this match again, Joey?
April 30th, 2003.
Okay. So he had wrestled for TNA 3 times before then, but yeah, this is before they brought him in for the run with hilariously, he filmed a match for TNA Explosion on January 8th of 2003 against Cole Cabana.
We have our own interference here tonight on Grin Grappler, only fitting with a Jeff Jarrett show. Oh, Jackie Crosby in the building. The founding father. I missed your text, Jack. I apologize. How are you, mate?
That's all right. How you guys doing? I'm just not intruding. I'm just here. Just want to listen. Just want to hang out. So you guys please keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely, bro. I'll throw it to you a few times. We're talking Jeff Jarrett, having a hell of a time. Serotonin was the name of the group, right?
No, Serotonin.
That's the later group.
Serotonin was
Shannon Moore,
Matt Bentley, and Frankie Kazarian. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to figure out. Okay, chat, help us. But yeah, I think they could have had a great world title match here with just like shenanigans on the finish, but instead by the end of it, it's like, good God. And also, it is an all-time funny finish because Jeff does the kick out and then just stands up and bends him with his finish.
And
he throws his kickouts are incredible, dude. Where he just throws his hands in the air.
Yeah, it's still very good. It's very, very fun, dude. I mean, it's a hell of a time, especially with this atmosphere.
The Gathering. Thank you, JJ.
The Gathering. Thank you, JJ. Interesting match. Alex, take it away, mate.
Well, there was a question in the chat about was Raven good in Ring of Honor? And I think this sometimes it gets confused on both sides, because I think there's people that take it too far of how good it was, and there's also people that downplay it. There's a guy named Phil Brooks who kind of downplays it. I think he once said that Raven had nothing to do with getting him over, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous, because that was like the feud that pushed CM Punk into the next level. The dog collar match is awesome.
Yes,
I
it is.
believe
Yeah.
from Death Before Dishonor. That's great. I can't say that I remember anything else they did during that time being particularly blown away, with the exception, to me, CM Punk's best promo ever is the promo he cuts on Raven and build to that, where he's like bleeding fucking Daphne and fittingly.
To be fair, though, you didn't watch Collision, so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. I watched him talk about Larry the dog, man. I've seen the best of the best.
Yeah, fair.
So
yeah, the dog collar match is the match for sure.
Yeah. And then when it comes to this match too, there's something to be said of it feels big when it starts, when the guys are walking out. Like, you can tell the crowd like thinks this is a big deal, and the guys both, even they look ready. They're like in their corners, like pacing back and forth during the introductions. We talked about the shape Raven's in. I mean, this is the just playing the hits. There's the funny segment where the ECW guys run in, and Just Incredible or Twitter personality Steve, depending on your prerogative, absolutely fucking kills Jeff with a kendo shot to the head, like a kendo stick. And then when Sabu comes in, New Jack tries to make a run in, and Sabu hits him so unnecessarily hard in the head. And what we know about poor Jerome now, he's left this world. He took too many of those chair shots to the head, man. Yeah. Sabu could have taken it easy on him. The moral of this match is that since ECW really took off in 1995, this was their specialty. The main event that had a lot of gaga, a lot of run in, and that, the brainchild of that obviously came from some Scott Levy and also Paul Heyman. They loved the idea of the lights go out and they come back up and something's in the ring. Yeah. That's how Adam Cole debuted in AEW. Tony Khan's obviously in Ring of Honor guy too. And the main event of WrestleMania this year relied heavily on the idea of gaga and people running in and the lights going out at some point and someone showing up in the ring. So there is a place for it. I think there's literally a dozen people that run in this match. That's a bit too much. Like, there's a bit of overkill to it. And then in the end, the idea of Jarrett winning when, if you listen to his version of it, he said they didn't have, like, Raven wasn't under contract, so they couldn't put the title on him. And it's like, dude, it was fucking Asylum era TNA. What the hell did a contract mean at that point?
And where was he going to sign? Was he going to go work fucking Japan? What was he going to go do?
The 0-1 Raven tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine Scott Levy in the G1. Just
no, thank you.
Drop toe hold into the chair every night, brother. That's what we're going to do. And then I'm pretty sure, I know the version I have on the DVD, the King of the Mountain, which I forgot to mention earlier, the menu for it, all the match choices are in the shape of guitar picks, because we used to take time to make DVD menus and shit.
Yeah, it's a sweet DVD, dude. It's really good.
It's edited, and I'm assuming all the versions we watched are edited, because the handcuff spot, they couldn't get the handcuffs off, and it led to this 3 to 4 minute segment in the match where no one could get the handcuffs off of Jeff Jarrett, and time just stood still, and the ref tried, and then Raven tried, and then someone else tried, and then Raven had to try again before they would come off. And it's the live report of the match at the time, it talks about it kind of took the entire thing off the rails. But the good news is, with the revolution of editing, we don't have to worry about that now. Good, not great, but we set the table for the historical significance of this match. And if someone made one of those, a music video about pro wrestling in the early 2000s, you put a clip of Raven and Jarrett facing off in there, because it was a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
And a very interesting footnote, and still to this day that people, I guess TNA is still a thing, but you talk to any old heads, they'll remember that this and Victory Road is the first two big things TNA did.
For sure, and it's also like, for our purpose, it is a good Jeff Jarrett performance too, and it's another example of his babyface fire at times is terrific. I think it's a weaker example in the match we're about to do, where he really goes, rolls back the years and it's like 80s Jeff Jarrett for a second. It's unbelievable. But yeah, a very famous TNA match, infamous in some ways. Jackie, I'm intrigued. I'm fascinated. Was you in the trenches on the great Jeff Jarrett debate in the mid 2000s about whether or not he should be the NWA World's Champ? I'd love to know where Jack Crosby was at in like 05 on the great Jeff Jarrett debate. Do you remember?
By 05 at TNA, I was like, no.
Okay.
It's time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got the company started. It's great, and we had the alternative. But no, by 2005, it was like, all right, man, enough's enough. Let's wrap it up.
You gave him some leeway beforehand, then, right? But by that point, enough is enough. Yeah. Yeah, because Alex, you said 05.
Now I think Jeff Jarrett should be WWE champion
and AEW champion.
Very weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about in line with what we've been saying all night.
My tipping point was when he didn't put Monty Brown over for the belt. That was like, because Monty Brown was so obviously like the fucking future of that company.
That was the point.
Yeah.
That was the point where, because, oh God, like Monty was so hot, man. And if you were watching that time as a fan, and I mean, Alex, we were in our mid-20s. Like, you looked at Monty Brown, you're like, that's the guy right there. And it just never fucking happened. And that was
the biggest what ifs
mistake.
ever. Huge what if, Monty Brown. For sure. All right. Our last match, fellas. 2009, January 11th, Genesis. This is in the era where Genesis was supposed to be like the fourth of the TNA Big Four. I don't know if anyone ever actually did listen to that or cared, but that was the idea. And this is in Charlotte, right? It's actually an arena show rather than the Impact Zone.
Okay, so what were the other ones? Bound for Glory is obviously the WrestleMania.
Lockdown.
Slammiversary, Lockdown, Genesis. Yeah. Because as you this time, this was actually rare to have a paper outside of the Impact Zone that wasn't one of those three. They were the only three they would go with. Generally, for a stretch here. This is the main event Mafia era, of course, which we now pretend to have been good. It is a rematch from Bound for Glory, where Jeff Jarrett won, which rules.
Great match.
He is no DQ. Yes, absolutely. Jeff Jarrett is a babyface. Charlotte is not convinced he should be a babyface, but he will perform at a level that allows you to completely forget that during the duration.
What does she know, honestly?
Factual. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to steal the lead talking point on this. I'm sorry, guys, but I have to get to this. Is a great example of a wrestling pairing that it doesn't quite add up in your brain, but it works in execution. The reason being, Jeff Jarrett is blessed with rock solid fundamentals, and I think his catalog shows he could become, he could stay within his comfort zone, right? Like, he knows what he can and can't do. He's Jeff Jarrett. He's not going to have a really shitty match. He knows how to get a match over. He's going to be fine. There is no wrestler more built to break one from their comfort zone than TNA Kurt Angle, who appears unsure as to what he's going to do at any given moment.
Yeah.
Out of control in this match, as he is for all of these matches from this era. And so Jeff Jarrett, because he's game enough, he finds himself doing things that you can't imagine Jeff Jarrett doing at any point, let alone in 2009. I mean, this thing gets wild. Alex, I'll go straight to you on this. Jarrett and Angle, Genesis, 2009. This is the highest rated Jeff Jarrett match according to the Cage Match. And it is quite the piece of business. It's wild and woolly, brother. Tell us about it.
Oh, definitely. It's shocking considering that part of the build involved Al Snow that this match is so heavily revered rather. Yeah, right from the jump, we get in there. This, honestly, I kind of watch these matches out of order. This was the first one I watched, and Jarrett gets in there and just starts fucking loading up those punches. And I was talking about, from the beginning of this episode, one of the all-time great working punches. And Kurt is just moving around the ring at 100 miles an hour, man. Like a lot of people talk about how fast Braun Breaker is and shit in the ring. Dude, fucking this era TNA Kurt Angle, not to say he was under the influence of anything, but that dude could zoom around the fucking ring to the point where Randy Savage did this a few times in his career, famously in the 10-room match, but Angle just takes it to a whole psychotic level here. He takes a backdrop over the rope, does a complete 360, and lands like on the concrete, like on his shins and knees, like over the top rope.
Yes.
And then, not to be outdone, Jeff Jarrett does a fucking Undertaker's suicide dive and lands on his face on the floor. It's just this insane, like,
that
30 seconds of wrestling on television.
It's so weird.
And then Angle takes the bell, like the ring bell, and like the wooden plank of it, and appears to just jab Jeff Jarrett in the head as hard as he can with it. I think, you know, there may have been a little work done to that, but like the noise it makes. And Don West, of course, being so fun, the voice of just like fun in wrestling, just like losing his mind about how hard he hit him is absolutely tremendous. They brawl up the ramp. Jarrett falls into an angle slam, which is supposed to be like the old Raw set spot where you fall off and there's like 2 tables waiting for you below. The problem, brother, is there ain't 2 tables waiting there. There's just one. So Jeff Jarrett, for all intents and purposes, takes an angle slam off the ramp onto the concrete. That's basically what happens.
Yes. In 2009, we want to
Yes.
reiterate here. Yeah.
And the ref like dives in there like, fuck, are you okay? They get back to the ring, and eventually leads to Jeff Jarrett doing a pedigree, which now is like commonplace in wrestling to do like the tribute spot, but that's really, really funny by 2009 standards. And then, dude, you want to talk about a flawless spot. Jeff winds him up in the stroke, and Kurt rolls through into the ankle lock. It just looks beautiful. And yeah, at this point, Jeff is kind of huffing and puffing, and you know, he's not in there with Nick Bockwinkel. I think he's realizing that at this point, that someone's not there to kind of carry him through and explain to him, you know, this is where we go next. Throws his drop kick at one point. It's to the chair, right? Angle goes to hit him with a chair, and he misses, and then so he drop kicks the chair back in there. Gets a tremendous 2 count on Kurt Angle, and we were talking about 2 counts earlier, and Jeff's like propensity to kind of Frankenstein out of them.
Oh,
Kurt Angle. I think Kurt Angle is the greatest near fall kicker outer I've ever seen. I always go back to WrestleMania 21, where Shawn super kicks him. Angle's eyes are closed, and he gets his arm up at the last second, because all too often, and even like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are guilty of this these days. The guys that like will watch the ref like count. They're not as bad as like Joey Janela, who's like watching the ref count a fall, but it's
Jesus.
It is a problem that people aren't. It's a problem, Joe, that people aren't as good as Kurt Angle at pro wrestling. So he gets that great near fall, that great kick out. Kurt Angle does possibly one of the only missile drop kicks of his career, going up to the top rope, lands that.
Yep.
And then for some reason, I guess, fucking, 90% into this match, Kurt Angle calls an enziguri, and so he ducks an enziguri from Jeff Jarrett and puts him in the ankle lock. The guitar breaks before it's supposed to. We get we trade some sweet chair shots. I don't know how I feel about the finish, though.
No.
I'm a big fan of their Bound for Glory match, and that finish is almost kind of like almost shtick, because it ends because Foley's the enforcer and he puts Angle in the claw, and then it leads to the guitar shot. And here it's Hulk Hogan's worst nightmare. He gets rolled up from behind, but it felt like this match deserved a more definitive finish.
Yeah.
But that does make the post-match angle, no pun intended, pretty sweet, of how he just like makes sure that he's not getting up after he loses the match. But yeah, this is one of those matches you could tell that if we asked Jeff Jarrett right now if he was here, he would probably say he probably felt it more than most of the matches he had in his career. And there's this weird thing with this era of Kurt Angle, a lot of people dub him Perk Angle. I think a lot of people have fun with it. We talked about this in our Sting episode when we talked about the Bound for Glory match that Angle had with Sting. I realized there were some like real issues at hand with it, but it did produce one of the more fascinating runs like an all-time great wrestler ever had, and not in a bad way. He didn't go out there and like, Jake the Snake style, like stumble and fall through these matches. It gave like this very fucking dedicated, interesting level of dedication. I just said dedicated, but performance, and a very committed level to what he was doing that, I don't know. I think people make light of it more than they probably should, because it's like, this dude, he was like out there to die every night. And yeah, that's bad. But at the same time, like watching it back all these years later, it's like, dude, this motherfucker was on fire, dude.
Yeah.
It's such a fine line. It really is. Alex brings up a great point there, because you shouldn't joke about it. People do, but like whatever he was taking, like I don't, but whatever it was like a performance enhancer. Like it wasn't like it, like he said, like Alex said, Jake the Snake. Like it wasn't that, like he was back there doing lines of coke or something, or like I don't know, like whatever he was on, it just translated to wrestling in a way that now it makes it really weird to look back upon, because he would get in that ring and the bell would ring and it'd be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He cared. I think it's fair to say, I mean, some of the stuff isn't for me, but like he very blatantly cared like far too much about his professional pride was not really befitting the setting by that point. And
I think that's part of it. He always clearly cared. He always clearly had a drive. I mean, he was he was a real competitive athlete that came into a fake sport. So he had like a real drive to do this. And I think, unfortunately, chemicals or whatnot drove him to a place where he was willing to commit to it a bit too much. But putting my bow on this match, to me, that kind of enhances it. Especially now, like if something bad had happened, now he seems at peace. He's better. We have an understanding of what happened and all that shit. So for me personally, I can look back on this shit and be like, dude, what a fucking animal. Like you said, not all of it's for me though. There's some of the shit he did during this time period I'm like, too fucking much. The Ken Anderson match is amazing, but it's not one of those matches I can fire up regularly, because it's just like, brother, it's Ken Anderson.
And it's the TNA run is interesting because it's like very obvious that he puts his matches together. And what you see when he puts his matches together is he is fucking insane. And a lot of the stuff he doesn't really add up. And if you give it to a lesser athlete, would be bad, in fact. But he's sort of, as we just mentioned, he's like a cyborg, he's a machine. I mean, this match is great. They do this crazy brawling to start, and then he bumps him off the apron. And then in the middle of it, Kurt he puts a headlock on for a couple of minutes, because in Kurt's brain, it's just like, we will now prepare to destroy ourselves. Like we will now sit, and it's like, it doesn't really add up or make sense. But he goes so nuts, it adds up,
There is some interesting things to take away from that, in that it's not, there's that, yes, but it's not like a Kurt Angle, like, he doesn't do the triple German. He doesn't run up the rope and throw him off. Like, it's still,
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I had never seen this before today. So
wow, really?
Yeah. I guess I had forgotten they had a rematch, because like I said, I've seen their Bound for Glory match 5 times, but like, very interesting. And, because I'm with you. Like, to me, in my brain, all the main event Mafia era shit, I just kind of skip. And what you said is right. People pretend like it's good now when it's not. So a lot of that is a blind spot for me.
Yeah. The match is interesting because it's clearly shaped a lot by like Jarrett's sensibilities, and it's just an interesting blend. Very, very interesting match. Bobby, what did you make of our final match of the evening?
Yeah, that was a great time. They bill it as a grudge match, and you got to be careful with that in wrestling sometimes. But this one really lived up to it. Physical, didn't underwhelm. Really just they brought it. Alex talked about the ring bell part with Angle. Obviously the Angle slam where they were pretty much close enough to where they needed to be. Could have went really bad, but but yeah. No, just a great time. And yeah, I mean, I haven't seen like a ton of Kurt and TNA, but everything I've seen, like, just this pedal to the metal, like, commitment, and it's a great time. And you know, the whole thing was Jeff's trying to get a win, kind of protect the honor of TNA. Fell short, but yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I do wish this match could have played out in front of a crowd that was more with the idea of Jeff as like the heroic TNA protector. Because
They were
Jeff's
into it by the
babyface
end, but
performance,
yeah.
they were, yeah, because he's that good. Like when he does the part where he fires up with the blood, they're with it, but they should be much more with it. It would be real, right? Like his performance is spectacular.
Can you imagine they like for some reason ran this pay-per-view in the asylum and Jeff came back as like the babyface?
Now we're talking 5 1/4. Oracle, Angle Jarrett. So there will be many more Angle Jarrett matches in a very different form, but this is the rematch of Jarrett as the babyface and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, you're not aware of the later of business there, Alex, or are you being sly?
Oh no, I just thought that was a joke I was going to make.
Oh, okay.
It was Kurt and China versus Jeff and Karen.
Yes, you know, I read someone on Pro Wrestling Only said that their best match is the 2011 lockdown match, and then I read that it was best 2 out of 3 falls, and I was like, well, no.
Oh, they had actual matches. I thought we were talking about.
Yes,
oh, I thought we were talking about Jeff stealing Kurt's
I
wife.
knew exactly what you thought, and I was trying to navigate around it. But yeah, they had a whole series of matches. Yeah. Oracle, did you like this match?
Oh yeah, this match is awesome. I've seen it 3 or 4 times. Of course, you know the big highlights like you know the Jeff face plant on the dive, the angle slam where Jeff's goes, you know, like angle, like Kurt goes to the table, but Jeff doesn't. My underrated favorite part, and I mentioned it in the DMs before the show, is when Kurt almost slips and like falls off the stage when they're setting up the angle slam. Like he stumbles, like almost just falls off the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is super fun. The finish is a bit flat, but like this is like an insane match. Like there's like, you know, 10 spots in this match that are nuts, and there's blood, and you know they're beating the shit out of each other. They're brawling around the building. Got Don West on commentary. One of the best. I still think this is like at some point I think it was 2020 when they're during the COVID lockdowns. I watched every 2009 pay-per-view, TNA and WWE. This was pretty clearly the best TNA pay-per-view match of the year.
I think his angles.
The AJ Joe Daniels match and the AJ Daniels match at the end of the year are both really good.
Very good.
But this one of those might be better than this actually, but like it was close. Those are the top 3.
Well, I think this might be Angle's best TNA match, to be honest with you.
This match it's incredible. Like,
oh man, that Bad Influence versus AJ and Angle match is
Slammiversary 12.
You're right, but this is not really fair. But that feels less like an AJ triumph. That's an Angle triumph. You know, like just because he's so beat up. Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about the Angle show, the Ken Anderson match, that's like Kurt Angle's greatest accomplishment in his career.
Yeah, you're right. I should have said that one. I reviewed it and everything.
You did wonderfully, by the way.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if there's ever been a match where Jeff Jarrett almost like dies like 2 or 3 times in the.
Yeah, they really they made for a great pair. And like again,
well, they wrestled that
fun, but their later matches are who also the ones I've seen. I haven't seen the lockdown match, but hell of a note to end on. Hilariously, I mean, folks, this is over 15 years ago, and with respect to Kurt Angle, who we're thrilled is doing better in terms of just the way, just generally speaking. But Kurt couldn't wrestle a match, under any circumstances tomorrow. Jeff is going to wrestle Bryan Danielson.
Since this.
I am so fucking excited.
We all are, bro. I can't
This
wait.
is the peak of my life.
Since this match, Jeff Jarrett has appeared on a WrestleMania, on a Wrestle Kingdom.
I saw.
What's
I
the
saw
All In?
I saw someone say, like that whole thing where when Vince bought WCW and he humiliated Jeff Jarrett. Look at where both are today.
Yes.
And my heart got so happy. I love Jeff Jarrett, man. I really do. It's not a bit I do on Twitter. I love, like, that guy knows professional wrestling. He does.
Sure. Jeff was also at the SummerSlam after Vince had to step back.
Yeah, I was at that one.
The Profits.
Yeah.
Which was
not a good match, but
their match before that was good, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, Money in the Bank.
He did that. He did Flair's last match like the next night or whatever.
Shit. Yeah.
And then in a few months,
AEW.
he was working for AEW.
Yeah.
Working Sting on pay-per-view, right? Wasn't it Sting and Darby that he feuded with?
Yep.
Yeah.
And did the funniest shit ever, where he went to GCW, worked on their biggest show ever.
He fucking beat Effie and was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was crazy. So any other match, so from the last 15 years, so again, the Angle stuff, Bound for Glory 08, Lockdown 2011, some of the Lethal Lockdowns are a hoot. Alex, my memory tells me 2006 is like the one that you would call out. Is that, what do you reckon? Because he's in 2007 as well as a babyface, right?
The 07 one is awesome. It's Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, and Rhino. Jarrett, Angle, Samoa Joe, Rhino, and Sting against Christian Cage, AJ Styles, Scott Steiner, Abyss, and Tomko.
Yeah,
wow.
that one rules.
That's the one that has
that's the best lockdown lineup ever, too. Just like all the.
It has that great finish where Jeff loads a guitar full of thumbtacks and hits Abyss in the head with it. It's fantastic.
There you go. AEW wise, I like quickly because it is a big part of his story. I think the Acclaim matches are a total triumph. They're some of the best Acclaim matches ever with him and Lethal. The Hangman match recently.
Mm-hmm.
There's another singles I wanted to call out.
We got it's on the Blu-ray release, but when it was made for me and Joe, the Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt team, they did the Chicago Bulls 94 style entrance at the United Center.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Oh, they have like a basketball hoop set up and shit, and like they're all wearing red and black, and like the biggest pop that me and Joe did was they billed Jay Lethal as 6'3". Like 6'3".
There was also another fun AEW one was when he and Lethal teamed with Mark Briscoe against the House of Black, and it was like a match that inexplicably had fire and shit on Collision. You remember this, Oracle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
No one else liked it, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre match popped me huge. It was,
from a horror point of view, it was tremendous.
It was, they stuck very on brand. I appreciated it.
The Orange match is fun too. Yeah, Alex, go for it. This is all TNA and beyond, so go for it, Alex.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I have this in. First of all, there's a big one that I've called out for someone else. I can't remember who. There was a 8-man tag that was Jeff Jarrett, Dusty Rhodes, and the Road Warriors against Low-Key, Christopher Daniels, Elix Skipper, and Vince Russo.
Yeah, I've seen
and the whole story, like Russo doesn't do anything, but you get like these insane interactions, like fucking Low-Key and Road Warrior Animal going hell for leather on each other. Like there's a lot of fun stuff that happens in that match. I mean, yeah, the multi-man matches. The King of the Mountain matches were fun. There were some lockdown matches. The 06 one where it was fucking Team Jarrett or whatever against Sting's Squadron or Sting's Rebels or whatever they were calling it at that point in time. I mean, we started from the beginning of like a guy who's wrestled Nick Bockwinkel and is about to wrestle Bryan Danielson. Just looking through like his TNA lineup. Ron Killings, AJ Styles, Raven, Jim Duggan, Jeff Hardy, Kevin Nash, Monty Brown, Scott Steiner, Samoa Joe. He had a pay-per-view match, main event against Samoa Joe. Like, dude wrestled everybody, man. To varying degrees of enjoyment, but the matches we covered here, I think, are a clear indicator that any period during, and we didn't even do the AEW stuff, but we just called out matches that were good. Like any period of his, you can find something good. It was called on the chat against all odds 2006 with Christian. I remember talking about that match in the Gail Kim one because she takes a horrific power bomb in that match.
Yeah.
But that match is fun. It's just a fascinating run that man's been on. And like I said from the jump, the biggest thing is because he comes from a different era and one that I would say had like the priorities in a little bit better place in the sense of he hasn't tried to wrestle every match like it's going to be the greatest match of his career. And I think a lot of guys try to do that now. And Jeff, if you find any era he was in, you can find a good one. It's just he knows when to turn it on versus when to not to.
For sure. Just to kind of fill in the gap. So our last match was January 2009, and of course, we had some fun with it early, but that summer, Jeff obviously he loses power in TNA. We'll put it that way and move on. None of our business. He loses power in TNA, and of course, I think he reemerges on screen for the Hogan Bischoff era.
Bischoff.
One of the most infamous moments of that era, of course, is when they frame him as a heel, and Hogan buries TNA, and the people, they obviously like TNA, so they choose Jeff, and then Jeff has to bury TNA himself to get back to being a heel. A complete mess. Then he's back to being a babyface before ultimately being part of They on 10-10-10, where he and Kurt pick up their feud with roles reversed and all of the real-life drama being part of the angle. Through 2011, he works with Jeff Hardy. Then one of the great Jeff Jarrett projects takes place once he's off screen for TNA when he does Ring Ka King, the Indian promotion with Scott Steiner.
Ever forget that?
It was an incredible, and his podcast by that is spectacular. The big LG Doc Gallows was along for the ride because of course he was. Ring Ka King, and then he resigns from TNA, I want to say, mere weeks before AJ's last match airs. Crazy 1-2 punch, right? Jarrett and AJ both gone to end of 2013. Start 2014.
I like their sacrifice match with Tito Ortiz as ref. It's not great, but it's fun.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't believe AJ came back to just lose to Magnus, that he respected that company that much.
Oh, no, he cared way too much. This was Gallows' name, by the way. Isaiah Cash.
That's the SmackDown general manager, goddammit. I won't allow it.
Good call. That match sucks. Too. Anyway, he resigns, and then he does Global Force and all that comes with Global Force. It quickly sort of evolves into like a promotional company. It's not really, because they do those baseball shows, right? Those baseball stadium shows with like, there's a whole can of worms there. Global Force Gold and all of that shit and whatever was going on with Global Force. He had some rough times personally, which he spoke about. And of course, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018. Bob, I want to say, you listened to his pod too. Wasn't he like just a couple months sober and he got the call about the Hall of Fame, I want to say?
Yep.
Got in the Hall of Fame, soon got the gig as an agent, so on and so forth, and now, of course, is among AEW's main characters here in the year of 2020.
Another match to throw out real quick is the Genesis 2005 six-man with he and AMW versus Rhino and Team 3D.
Dudley's. Good match. Dude.
That match is awesome. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, that match is really, really good. So, yeah, I think that covers about the journey best we could. Again, I mean, I touched on Bullet Club earlier, which was a very funny Jeff era. Comrade always gives him shit about ruining every faction he's ever been in, which is a thing that they have fun with. Whether or not he was a horseman, the NWO, all that's come with Jeff Jarrett. It's time for us to talk about our final thoughts. And I think this is, we've covered a lot here. I think it's very tough to kind of conclude in a way that's, fitting, but with respect to the rest of our conversation. We'll try our best, though. Oracle, I'll go to you first. Anything you haven't said or you'd like to reiterate, now's the time. Final thoughts on the grappler that is Jeff Jarrett.
No, not really. I just think that, he's kind of ended up having a really good legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's, I don't know, the last several years, whether it's through his podcast or through, obviously his personal life getting a lot better or whatever. people are kind of looking back on him more fondly, and this happens with a lot of the legends, right?
It does. Yeah.
You just start to appreciate all the good things that he did and where he came from, right? I mean, he's the son of Jeff Jarrett, who is one of the great wrestling minds or promoters in the history of wrestling. And he, as I mentioned early on, he's very much the son of his father in terms of he knows how to play his cards, as Alex mentioned. He knows how to play the game, the long game, and he knows how to do it well and do it smartly. And also he's from the South, and
Pop.
He works a style and has does a callback to a style that I really appreciate. So
throws good punches too.
Hell yeah, brother. The South, brother. They
only one way.
No Yank can throw a good punch. Yeah.
Bobby, final thoughts on Jeff Jarrett, if you have any, brother, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, the first match we did here was from 1987. He's wrestling Bryan Danielson tomorrow night on national television, and it doesn't feel like forced or like out of nowhere. Like they built to it. He's kind of like still kind of a part there. Like he's gonna be in wrestling for the rest of his life in some form or fashion, and and a good thing we do on this show is we take the time to appreciate guys like that, and he's another one of them.
I like it. I like Bob Pattis on the back. I respect it. I think I'm kind of torn on it in that I actually personally like Jeff a lot in terms of I like his work, and I think he's just a great wrestling character on screen and off, right? I think wrestling needs characters and personalities like him. I do think from a wrestling career point of view, I find him slightly frustrating in terms of you talked about earlier, Alex, in terms of like he got attached to a particular creative mind that I honestly think while he did him a lot of favors in terms of push, I don't think he did him any favors in terms of presentation.
Bro.
I think there are versions of Jeff Jarrett's career, and I don't think he gives a shit, but this is Grin, Grappler, so we're going to talk about it. I think if you play his career at different times or with different creative voices, I think he could have produced a much better body of work, to be totally honest. Luckily, he has gone on for so long that who could possibly care, right? I mean, it's like at some point you just kind of throw your hands up. But I think there are matches here that you look at and you circle and go, there could have been more of this if things turn out differently, if the era is different, right? If the time is different, if the setting is different, if the creative is different. But he had the career he had. He's still having it. He stayed relevant the whole time. And he's just been a very unique presence in wrestling. So very, very interesting one. But I'm definitely a fan. I think there's a great deal of charm to Jeff Jarrett. Jack, any thoughts just generally on Jeff before we move on here, mate?
Just a guy who, for better or worse, and that's a cliche that gets thrown around a lot, for better or worse, but it really, for Jeff Jarrett, it fits. Like for better or worse, he is an all-time great professional wrestling legend. Because like Bob spoke to the longevity, and he's adapted to everything that this industry is thrown at him, and he's had some terrible moments. Jeff Jarrett has had some embarrassing moments.
Yes,
but he has always picked himself up, got up, and said, "All right, well, I'm going to try this again."
Cool.
I really do love Jeff. I do.
I actually, I'm glad you said that. Actually, that's actually a bigger part of his legacy. We talk about longevity and being relevant. Big part of that is the fact he's always able to recover, right? Like
he is the epitome of getting knocked down, getting up, dusting yourself off, and going, "All right, well, now I'm going to try this."
Dude, like seriously, imagine telling someone a decade ago that he would be a part of a TV show of AEW's. AEW's a major TV show, and he's a big part of it.
And that during that time, he would have come through the WWF as their house show director, and then Yeah. Yeah, you had to
on a personal level too. He had problems with drinking and whatever else. He had substance abuse issues. He obviously cleaned those up.
Yeah.
And then is just like he keeps going
he
forward.
He looks great, dude. He's nearly 60.
Fucking fantastic for his age.
He's nearly 60, dude. It's unbelievable.
I honestly think that like Jeff, whoever said, like, he's going to work in this industry until he dies.
Yeah.
And my wish is that, like, but now that Vince McMahon is gone, oh, can I say this? Remember, the steroid trial? Jerry Jarrett was he was the backup plan to run the WWF.
I knew where you were going, yeah. You want Jeff to be the top guy in WWE at 65 years old.
Jeff Jarrett is going to run the WWF one day.
Look, dude, anything's possible. He's fucking on TV.
With him, you can't write it off.
Yeah.
And
you can't. That's the thing. Look, you can't. Like, it's Jeff Jarrett. Dude. You cannot rule this out. And I'll just say this. If you look at the pieces right now in WWE's legal troubles, there is an avenue for Jeff Jarrett to pop in there and be like, I could do this.
If she is a fan, he's got to be one of the top candidates, right? He's qualified, so fuck, anything can happen. I don't know.
I could see Nick Khan being like, "Come here, buddy.
Let's get." Could you imagine? Concession stand brawl at WrestleMania. All right, Alex, take us home on Jeff Jarrett, brother. Final thoughts.
It's kind of like what you were saying. It's you can't help but think of if certain things were played differently, and what we talked about, he hitched his wagon to a creative mind that I can understand being loyal to people that helped you, but you can't help but kind of wonder, like, Babyface Rock in 99 or 2000 feuding with Jeff Jarrett, or if he hadn't done that promo, 99 or 98, excuse me, Steve Austin feuding with Jeff Jarrett. Not that those would have been like huge programs, but just the idea of like transitional, what the matches would look like and things like that. So my thing with Jeff Jarrett, I guess in conclusion, is like it's a joke. It's an easy go-to. Compare him to Onita as far as like all-time carnies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But the biggest difference is that like Jeff Jarrett has, like I said, he's been on wrestling television at a high level for 30 years. Consistently, and God bless Onita. You can't say the same thing for him. I think the peaks and valleys of Atsushi Onita are a bit different than the peaks and valleys of Jeff Jarrett. Yeah. But that is something to circle back to, because Jarrett is, like I said, the polite way of wording it, he's a worker's worker. God damn it, and he's figured out a way to remain relevant, and I think in a way that like different than Onita and some of those other guys you could put in that category. He has had, his down times, but he's called him out as much as anybody. But there's not that like legacy of like Jeff Jarrett's like a scumbag. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
he always comes out of it fine. Yeah. Always.
Yeah. And even then, like there's still people that, even the people that fucking lost to him when they shouldn't have him, like, yeah, but Jeff's a good guy, give me a break, like that type of thing.
Dude, do you remember the story when he was in TNA for a minute there where like Eddie Kingston wanted to fight him? And then like, a few years later they brought up Jeff Jarrett to Eddie and he was like, yeah, I was wrong there. I like Jeff. I saw him recently.
And that's
Eddie Kingston.
That's the weirdest part, because typically people that have that kind of longevity in wrestling have at least a couple enemies or people that will publicly like lambast them, and he doesn't seem to have that. Or if there are moments of weakness for people that do, it's addressed. Like obviously that infamous thing of him in that Vampiro documentary has been addressed by him, and he's better for it at this point. So Jeff Jarrett is a living testament that the ideal or the idea, excuse me, of it used to be better can still like be applied. Like it doesn't have to mean that every single thing that you do is different. You know, it's just you can know what worked in the past and apply that to today, and it can work the same. And he knows how to do that just as good as like anyone who's active. Again, it's insane that he's still active at his age.
There's lessons there for sure.
Yeah. And just you don't have to be Hulk Hogan your whole career, man. That's the thing. Of like Jeff is. Can you imagine like telling Hulk Hogan or Triple H, like the idea of like telling fucking Triple H, hey man, you'll have a career. It's just 10 years from now you're gonna be on the pre-show. He'd be like, right. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, you know, he wouldn't stand for anything like that. And that's being malleable is important too. And like when his time comes to step aside, I think it's already become apparent that people are realizing his legacy in terms of longevity, contributions made, ability to do what he can do. And when his time comes, I think it'll come even more in waves. I think he was one of those guys for a while. People were just kind of annoyed or tired of hearing his name. I think he got too much shit for being like one of the last headlining acts of WCW. He really had no control over what was going on, like with the downfall of that company. I think he got like a bad rep from that. And then, some of the bad decisions made in TNA, but like motherfucker's still there. People react when he comes out now. And dude, that industry is a game. And, you know, he's played the fucking game and knows how to. And he's played most of his cards right. And that's why he is where he is right now. I
still don't understand. And Alex, tell me if I'm wrong. But, like, you know, we hear all these stories about how Tony Khan is losing his mind over booking every show. If I'm Tony Khan and I have Jeff Jarrett next to me, I tell him, here, man, take this, take Collision, book it. And if I have a problem, I'll tell you, but like, how do you not take Jeff Jarrett and be like, here, man, do this?
At this point, my assumption would be that Jeff doesn't want to do that. And he's just he's there to hang out and, you know,
maybe
pal around with Jay Lethal. And that's a great recent example of him still knowing how to turn down that promo he did after he lost to Hangman.
All right.
About the importance of losing and in the Owen tournament and all that.
Another counterpoint. If I'm Tony Khan, again,
I bring in Shane McMahon.
Well, why don't I take my billions at my disposal and go, Jeff, I know you don't want to do it, but here's $10 million.
Man.
Fucking
I think Jeff has strengths. I'd be hesitant to give him the book. I don't know, man. I don't know.
No, Jeff
Collision,
Jarrett
I think, yes.
No, Jeff Jarrett as a booker, without himself involved, I think can work tremendously.
But he is involved, though, Jack. He's on TV now.
But if you tell
absolutely,
him, but no, I'm saying, if you
it's
say
like a kid in candy.
No, we're taking him out of the wrestling equation.
Yeah.
And say, I'm going to pay you to book these.
Maybe. I think he should have a voice. I definitely think he should have a voice. Yeah, creative for sure.
Final closing thought. Jeff Jarrett is a living example of, if you're in that business, it's not going to hurt you in any way to learn every facet of that business. Learn how every single thing runs so that if there's a fucking leak in the ship, you can be the person there to plug it in and fill it. Like he's been a Swiss Army knife, to say the least, in the wrestling business. And that is why we're talking. The first match we talked about him was, he was a fucking young boy in 1987 wrestling Nick Bockwinkel, and now we're just like, we should probably give him the second biggest company in the world right now.
Giannis, you know who I think the modern day version of that is?
Sid?
No, Fergal.
Sid?
Finn Balor?
I think
the modern day version, Sid.
I think it's Finn. I really think Finn is going to have a huge part in the next 20, 25 years of professional wrestling. I think he is.
We'll circle back.
Like, he knows how to do everything.
We'll circle back.
Yeah.
I want to note that we should, this is important. Don't have an answer right. He founded TNA, and that is a huge part of modern wrestling and what wrestling has been for 20 years. And I think we're also used to that story that it is easy to gloss over, how many wrestlers became famous because of a promotion he founded, right? It is crazy to think about. So I absolutely think it's a good call, I should say. And yeah, it's huge. And Bob mentioned about Jeff working in the industry until the day he dies. There was a great story he told, I brought up before on here, where he visited Jerry a couple days before Jerry's passing, a couple weeks. And the first thing Jerry said to him was, that Darby Allin Samoa Joe match on Dynamite was incredible. he still is I'm going to make the time watch Dynamite and see what's happening in the industry. It's in their blood, dude. They're a wrestling family. Yep. So, tremendous stuff. It is now time, though, fellas, to look ahead to our Grin Grappler for August. And this is an interesting group of options. I promise I have not skewed this too much. There are 3 hilariously Joe Holbrook Promotions selections available. We don't have to go with those. We'll see what we got, all right? I'll start with the non-JHP selections. We could do Grin Grappler, Beautiful Bobby Eaton, which would be wonderful. Love to do it. We could do Grin Grappler, Kofi Kingston, who has been on TV now for 17 years.
Yep.
Maybe. Be interesting. We could do the new world's champion, Gunther, who I think is now starting to get to a point where we could do that without, because obviously he has a whole new prime ahead of him as world champ. Good Lord, he has a body of work too, right? You could do pre-WWE, NXT, WWE alone. And then we have the 3 Joe Holbrook Promotions offerings. We have the Ring of Honor World Champion, Athena. We have the soon-to-be reunited Jimmy and Jay, the Usos. And, of course, we have the guys that saying Bobby's already grinning. We have the dangerous option of Lexi all caps. Now, the problem with Alexa Bliss Grin Grappler is obviously the matches, but the bigger problem is I've already agreed that if I do this, I have to give Alex the Shane McMahon episode.
Oh,
and I don't have the juices worth the squeeze. So I mention it because I need to do an Alex reference, so I put it to the side. So really, we've got Bobby Eaton, Gunther, Kofi Kingston, Athena, and the Usos. This is a unique selection we have to make here. Bobby, always go you first because otherwise you get very mad. What are you thinking?
We could do Alexa because I have no problem doing Shane McMahon. So
you have no problem, but I have to do Shane McMahon too. I can't be sick that night,
Yeah, I don't know that I really have a favorite of the 5. I think there's a lot of intrigue with each of them. I've seen the least of Bobby Eaton, but I've heard a lot about him, obviously.
3 of these could be very relevant because Gunny's the world's champ.
Yeah.
By the time we do this, for all we know, Alexa could be back. And by the time we do this, for all we know, the Usos could be back together too, right? All 3 of these things were. I think the Usos is slightly unlucky because I think he's teaming with Sammy for a bit. Jay is.
Yeah.
But the problem with the Usos is I want to do an Usos episode, but it feels like there's no worse time than now because everyone fucking hates Jey Uso, don't they, at the minute?
Mm-hmm.
The libs.
Yeah, we probably can't do the Usos.
Yeah. I don't know. Very torn here. So gun to your head, Bob. Where you leaning? Gun to your head. Follow your heart, kid.
Probably Bobby Eaton, honestly.
Wow. Oracle, what are you thinking here?
I'd love to do Bobby Eaton too, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You do Bobby Eaton. I'm for it. It feels like the right choice, doesn't it? Feels like the right choice.
My biggest opposition with Gunther is that it just
cover so much.
It's tough with the people who are in their prime,
And we cover him like regularly too. So
One of the matches we'd have to do is 47 minutes long, which I don't think any of y'all are down with that.
Exactly. Like,
this we'll get to. He'll obviously have. I mean, look at the options for August. He's clearly going to get an episode at some point.
There's a well-documented history of us agreeing that he's already in contention, like in discussion for one of the greatest ever. So
yes, he's spectacular.
He is. He really is.
So if we take so Bobby Eaton is your leading. Well, I can't do the Alexa bit anymore because I've committed to that Shane thing, and I
would do Alexa Bliss just to do the Shane thing. But
what would be the Alexa eras would be like Mean Girl, Bliss Cross, Coffee Fan, and you can't do the spooky Alexa.
Yeah.
There's no way there's any match. What matches does she have a spooky Alexa?
You could do the trios match at Clash of the Castle, which is like 3 1/4. But you can still do it.
She was in that, like against Damage Control.
Actually, in terms of matches, that would probably be the easiest because the Saudi tag is good too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hold up.
And you could do the Sasha Banks match from Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah.
Fucking right, we will, Alex. We'll do the Sasha Banks match from Great Balls of Fire. We'll do one of the Pam matches, not the Kendo one of the good ones. But then what are you going to give me for the Shane? The Shane one's going to be fucking unbearable. He's going to be out wrestling Kurt Angle. He's going to be Matt wrestling with Kurt Angle.
The Test SummerSlam 99 street fight. Kurt Angle.
Yep.
The AJ match.
Yeah.
Then things get a bit dicey.
Right. If we can come to an agreement here, I'm willing to go ahead with this deal that you and I have because I didn't think about because the problem is this is why it's not fair. Even though it's a deal that I constructed myself and immediately regret.
I'm surprised you skipped over the stand-up, shut-up era of Alexa.
Well, I'm a fake fan, but my issue with the Shane thing is I realized after exactly, I'll get there. I realized after agreeing this for you, his matches are going to be 3 times the length of Alexa's matches. Like the Alexa Green Grappler would actually be like the easiest month ever, wouldn't it? It would breeze through. It'd be lovely. But Shane's matches always go on forever.
Yeah, he's a big match wrestler, man. He's the best bout machine. I mean, being genuine, we could easily piece together Alexa one, and then the Shane one can always be on the back burner. But we got to think about the audience here, not just pop ourselves. What are we? 96 WCW. I mean, Bobby Eaton could be a hell of a time. Get the Flair match in there. The fucking Midnight. What was the Tracy Smothers tag team? Great American Bash 89.
Southern Boys.
And there you go. I think Great American Bash 89 may be the first show we complete through Grin Grappler. Because I think we've already done 3 matches from that show.
That's good, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's plenty to do there.
Shane McMahon is born in January. Will we be neglecting great grapplers if we did this heinous act and actually talked about Shane McMahon for 3 hours?
Hell no.
Probably not.
I can't find the list here. All right, should we do a poll? Because we don't know. Should we do a poll with the chat?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys? How many people do we have? We have 30 people left watching this whole shit. Right, we're going to do a poll. We're going to do a poll in the chat. This is very important. So have we limited to the Lexi Shane 1-2 punch? Now, again, the Shane episode will be once we get there, but it'll be locked in on the schedule. It won't be a double month. That and Bobby Eaton, they are 2 lead candidates here. Or Bobby Eaton. He deserves better. All right, Bob, fill it out while I type this up.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. Really curious to see how this one goes. Thinking of Oracle, was the good Shane and Miz against the Usos match, was that the one at the Rumble or the other one? Because one of them was pretty good, right?
One it was.
People have told me the McIntyre and Shane against Taker and Roman match
was good.
Yeah, it's fun.
That match is
I like
good.
that match a lot.
It is.
Poll is underway. Folks. This is a slippery slope we're on here. One of the most effortless professional wrestlers ever and Bobby Eaton on the board.
We would have to do I don't know about have to. I would have to, revisit the lineup, but there was that Shane McMahon Rock Steel Cage match that 9.3 million people watched on TV. So
the more matches you list here, the more frightened I get about what's waiting for me. Oh no! All right, things have taken a turn here in this poll. All right, folks, we're leaning in a certain direction here. Please do vote,
Michael's
people.
match at Saturday Night's Main Event 2006.
There you go.
He does. He takes that wild spot at Superplex. Yeah.
All right, keep the votes coming. We'll leave this up for another couple minutes here.
Off the ladder to the table, right?
Yeah, through a couple of them.
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be easy, man. Putting together the Shane lineup.
It'll be easy to put a lineup together. Wait until I have to watch it. It'll be fucking easy then. Combined runtime of 4 hours and 30 minutes. Might as well do an Okada episode. Jesus wept. Good Lord, man.
Nah, yeah.
Joe.
I don't like the man. I can't. And the other scary thing is, for all we know, by the time we get around to this, he's going to be the fucking main eventer in AEW.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to be the commissioner of Collision. All right, we're going to leave this up for another. We've got 50 seconds, folks. It's not very close, but it's close enough to change it if you want to. Keep voting.
Jokes aside, we would end at the latest on the Taker Hell in a Cell. I'm not doing anything after that.
You got to do the AJ match, bro.
Yeah, the AJ match is after that.
Yeah.
That's the only one I want to do.
You're right.
The AJ matches.
You can end on that.
Spectacular.
Well, folks, unless something happens dramatic on this poll.
Match?
Do what?
Yeah, let's not do that, please. Please don't do that.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot the AJ match was after. It's just I always think of the Taker Hell in a Cell.
We can't do the Taker Cell match.
No.
Oracle even drew the line and said, fucking come on. All right.
I like Shane, but we can't do the fucking Taker.
67% has voted for the Lexi Shane 1-2 punch.
Oh, shit.
All right. Batten down the hatches.
It's going down for real.
All right. So the Grin Grappler for this month will be, for better or worse, by hook or by crook, it will be Grin Grappler Alexa Bliss this month. And then in January, I need to have a training camp first to prepare myself. We'll be going into Grin Grappler Shane McMahon.
Boys, I have found an 18-minute match from Monday Night Raw in 2003. It's Booker T, the Dudleys, and Shane against Jericho.
Oh, the tables match.
Christian, fucking Oracle. Oh, duh. Yeah, Jericho, Christian, and La Resistance. All right, I've got a few months to get this list cultivated, so we'll be good to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. All right, we'll see how this goes, folks. Things are getting dangerous here. We're living dangerously at Grin Grappler, but nonetheless, that's what's coming up, folks. So lock in, I guess. Prepare yourselves. We'll have tweets soon with lineups and such. So. Grin's ahead. All right, let's do some plugs and let's get on out of here. Bobby, do you have anything to push, anything to promote, so on and so forth?
SummerSlam draft Friday evening. Be there.
Hell yeah. There? Cool.
Yep.
Sick. Oracle, anything to plug?
SummerSlam draft Friday evening, as Bob said.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss, Grin Grappler.
It's funny, dude. The words are funny. Yeah.
Shane McMahon, Grin Grappler in January. I believe we have a watch along on the Late Night Grin on Friday the 16th.
Probably so. I need to lock it in with the gentleman on the screen right now. We'll circle back on that. Probably, yeah. Probably so.
Then we have 3 weeks in a row of pay-per-view previews.
Oh, yeah. The good life, as we call it. Yep. That's what's coming up, folks.
Which one I won't be attending, but I won't be there for the Wembley one, but I'll be there for I'll probably be there for the Bash of Berlin and the All Out previews, but I won't be there for Wembley.
But you will be there Friday, right? Or for the SummerSlam thing?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
be there this coming Friday for SummerSlam. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, Jackie, anything to plug? Any CBS Sports discounts or anything?
Not yet. Give me like 2 weeks.
Discount code LNG.
Give me like 2 weeks for CBS.
Alex, what's the latest of the Contrarians, brother?
Summer Rage is on, so we're still working through our Peter Bogdanovich and PJ Hogan filmographies. We are thecontrarians.com, at Contrarian Prime, and all your social media platforms. And keep supporting the Late Night Grin. We got the SummerSlam draft on Friday, and we'll be back with Grin Grappler, Alexa Bliss next month. I don't have any action figures, but I got props like event tees and shit, so we'll be good.
Oh, hell yeah. Are you aware of the thumbnail for the SummerSlam draft? It's a tribute to you, bro.
No, I'm not. Oh, God damn it.
All right, folks, there it is. We're now on the road officially, the road to Grin Grappler Alexa Bliss, which means the season finale of this program is almost upon us. It's been a hell of a time. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, smash the like button. I'll say it for boy. Subscribe. Please leave a comment below if you've stayed this long or if you're watching this on delay or whatever. It helps us out. And again, I'm going to reiterate it, folks. This is going to be the biggest month in Late Night Grin history. Stay tuned. All right. Keep grinning. Oh, wow. Enjoy this outro, folks. Have a good one.
Later.
Bye.